Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. I am on time today, literally 8:45 on the dot. That's what happens when you wake up early and you get ready, dude. There we go, 8:45 on the dot. Not too bad. Monday morning, starting off the last week of September. We got 2 days left. 2 days left of September, and then we are done. Then we head into October, which is my favorite month of the year. And hopefully that month continues in terms of the momentum we've had in the broader stock market that we saw in August and September. So we're going to see kind of how this ends up playing out. We got some macro stats to talk about in terms of what to expect in October. And then obviously, we got 2 days left today and tomorrow of September. And hopefully if we end out at the levels that we're at right now, September can be a pretty awesome month. And in the pre-markets, it's kind of already showing that it wants to end out at least here or higher. We got pretty much everything that's green in the pre-markets, a continuation of what we saw yesterday in the overnight markets. S&P 500 right here, 665. I think last night it was at 662. So you are seeing a little bit of a 0.5% bump in the pre-markets. And hopefully that continues. And if it does, then we'll get to end out September in an exciting way. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We got a lot to talk about today. Uzi says, I dreamt about Vlad. Join the club, bro. Join the club. You think you're special? Join the club. I've done it multiple times. So I'm not even kidding, bro. I wish I was kidding. I'm not even kidding. He just happens to pop into the dreams sometimes. So it is what it is. But good morning, everybody. Danny, what's up? Grant, I'm Benny, Thiago, Deneen, Hashim, what's up? What's up? Andy, good morning. Joe says Robinhood multi-account just went live for me. This is awesome. It's actually a really, really good product. When I start the public portfolio in January 2026, it will be on Robinhood. So we'll get to see the portfolio go up and down on Robinhood. We get to buy stocks, sell options on Robinhood. And I was kind of worried because I was like, dude, am I going to have to take some money and go do it on a different platform? And then at the summit, they launched multi-accounts, which people have been waiting for a long time. Even if you want like a dividend account and a growth account, like people have wanted this for so long. I wanted it to do the public portfolio. So I'm very excited for that. And that'll be fun as we get into 2026. Nick, what's up? Yeti, what's up? Channing, Nicholas, Martin, Mike P, Mosh, Logan, Mark, Samuel, morning from Hong Kong. Thank you for being here from Hong Kong. Appreciate it. And thank you everybody for joining today again. All right, so let's get into it. I think we'll start off with kind of how September is ending out, what to expect for October. And then we'll keep going from there. We got a bunch of different headlines to get into as we kind of wrap up the month of September. And then we'll preview Q4 and what to kind of expect in Q4. So the first thing I want to start off with is just the broader S&P 500. If we end out the way we are closing at right now, we're basically a little bit above where we're at right now, we will have a 3.5% month on the S&P, which is pretty ridiculous. And the reason it's ridiculous is not only because August was amazing, not only because everyone said that September is supposed to suck. And, historically, the data did suggest that September was supposed to suck. So it would be back-to-back months in a row where September would be strong. It would be a basically diametrical opposite composition compared to the historical trends of what September is supposed to be if we end up 3.5%. But also the last time we even had a 3.5% month was back in 2010. Up 8.7%. Last year, we were up about 2.79. So if we give 1% back over the next couple of days, which is possible, then we're probably going to be in line with 2024 September metrics. But if we end out where we're at right now, this could be almost a 4% month, which would be incredible. Now, I don't know if that sets up a dip for October. That's kind of inevitable because, September and August were so good. Maybe we need to get a dip, or it just keeps the momentum rolling into October. But at least September would end out pretty strong. And I think it goes to show I say it all the time, but the resiliency of this market, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how that resiliency has manifested itself over the past 30 days. But quite frankly, it has been incredible. The dips have been far and few in between inside of the month of September. Same thing for the month of October or for August. If that continues in October, then that would be very strong. Now, the four things to watch out for this week are obviously confirmation on a government shutdown. I really don't think it's going to happen. And if it does happen, I think it's going to last for a couple of days, maybe a weekend max. I think by about Wednesday night at around 12 a.m., we're going to know for sure if a government shutdown happens. So we'll talk more about that. Non-farm payrolls this Friday. Market's expecting about 50,000 jobs. We definitely shouldn't have way less than that. That would accelerate the necessity for a rate cut, but definitely would show that the economy is in a bad space. And if we have 300,000 jobs, that would show that we don't need any rate cuts. So I think around 50,000 is probably what we're going to come out to be. Crypto, which is trying to rebound after a few losing weeks. We've already got Bitcoin and Ethereum that's up in the pre-markets, and so we'll see how that ends up playing out for the rest of September. And then Amazon and Google are hosting new events for different products. Google is going to be hosting a Gemini AI event, particularly around the Gemini, like Siri, not Siri, but their like home product that talks to you. I think it's called Google Nest or something like that. And then Amazon's going to be showing off some new products with the Kindle and Alexa and all that stuff. So those are two events that theoretically could move those stocks this week. I don't think they would move the markets, but we're going to see how that ends up playing out. So that's kind of the main stuff to look out for as we end out September. I'm going to put a poll right here in the chat and kind of get people's perspectives on this. But the question, do we end out September with S&P 660? 660 plus or 660 or below 660? 660 is basically 3.5% for the month, which again is pretty incredible. Below it would be still pretty good. It just wouldn't be as strong as it has been over the past week. And so if that continues, that would be very, very exciting. Now, what should we expect in October if September is going to end out the way it ends out? Well, historically, October is actually better than September. So you've got that going for us. I don't know if that's relevant in a year like this where, September has been pretty good. So we're going to have to see. A lot of the historical precedents have kind of been flipped up their head, I think, based on what happened in April. But October is historically the most volatile year for stocks. So the average October volatility is actually 33% above the average for the other 11 months. And so, and this is particularly for the S&P 500. So when we think about volatility, it could go to the upside or it could go to the downside. If it is to the downside and you see VIX kind of spike up, then you're probably going to get some juicy dips on some stocks. And my question simply becomes, who's not buying those dips? If you really get like aggressive dips, which remember, I think last week it was on Tuesday, we thought we would get some aggressive dips and it lasted from 9:30 to 9:44. You had 14 minutes of like a 3% dip across pretty much every stock. And then it just reversed. So if we do get, 10, 15%, like actual dips on companies that we all care about, I do think people will be ready to buy those dips. But the point is you should expect volatility. I don't know if we have to expect green or red. More likely than not, historically, it's been green. But given this September was green, we're going to have to see how October plays out. So volatility will likely be the name of the game. And we're going to see what October ends up becoming. If you are 60% in cash, right? If you do have cash that you have hoarded up and you do get an exciting dip opportunity in October, then maybe this is one of those routes to buy the dip before you get into the Santa Claus rally or the perceived Santa Claus rally in November, December. Now, Bank of America came out with their S&P 500 target, and they're at 7,200 in the next 12 months. Bank of America raised its 12-month S&P target to 7,200. Analysts cite stronger productivity, business investment, and easier monetary policy boosting rate-sensitive sectors. Essentially, the argument is, hey, even if the labor market slows down, we're going to have more job productivity and margin enhancement. And that's where you get the S&P 500 at 7,200. Now, you have other people like BMO Capital that have been relatively bullish for the past basically 3-4 years now. And their argument is 7,000 by the end of the year. So you've got some banks that are a little bit more conservative in terms of their 12-month trajectory. That would be 8% higher, 7,200 in the next 12 months, which likely would mean we don't have a massive bull market year in 2026. But if we have 7,000 by the end of the year and we're at 75, 7,700 by the end of 2026, that's a totally different dynamic. And we're going to have to see if we can end up getting to that 7,000 towards the end of the year. Tesla has been one of the main beneficiaries of this bull run, 447. Again, Tesla was lagging for the majority of the year. Everything was green in the pre-markets, but as you can see, Tesla trying to break through that what did it get to? 446.9. I think last week. So it's trying to break through 447, 446.86, trying to do that in the pre-markets right here. All-time highs are 448. So you are seeing a nice little move on Tesla. It was actually up in the pre-markets as well yesterday. NVIDIA, 180, S&P 665, AMD 160, Grab 611, Reddit's up 2%, Amazon's up 1%, Meta back to 750, Robinhood 123, Palantir almost 180. I mean, you're seeing a lot of green momentum, and either it's going to be a head fake when the market opens, even Bitcoin getting some momentum, Ethereum back above 4,000 after that was at 3,800, App loving $14 away from $700. There's obviously excitement going into the last couple of days of September, and hopefully that holds on. And if it does, that would be very exciting. Yeah, all-time highs is 488 on Tessie. Now, speaking of Tessie, tomorrow is going to be a very important day because I believe we get delivery numbers and energy numbers for Tesla. I did a poll yesterday in the chat, and most people thought they would come in below 440. Consensus analysts are estimating 447,000 deliveries in Q3. I'm more in the range of 450 to 475, above 500. I think the stock probably gets up another 5%. I mean, if they really are able to execute on deliveries to that level, I think it would be very exciting. There you go, 447 in the pre-markets. But you have a lot of analysts that have increased their price targets as well, simply because they think that there's momentum, like Benchmark, which maintained their price target at 475. They still have a buy, one of the higher price targets on the street. That's about an 8% move currently from the price right now. And the key takeaways are, hey, they think, well, we might have 442,000 versus 448,000 consensus on deliveries. If Tesla even gets to 450, 470, I think that would blow away everyone's expectations. Tesla's expected to report 3Q deliveries on Thursday. Oh, is it Thursday? I thought it was Tuesday. Oh, it is Thursday. You're right. Okay, so Thursday. So we'll see what happens on Thursday. And then we'll get the answer with that. With the stock up sharply into the print, its positioning raises the bar for an upside surprise to translate into further near-term strength. We also see the risk of volatility in the regional miss or ASPs if the ASPs underwhelm, aka the average selling price. We continue to anticipate policy-driven choppiness after 3Q as certain EV incentives are going to be rolling off to select markets, potentially creating fourth quarter demand air pockets and order book lumpiness. In our view, this is transitory, not thesis breaking, which is why we maintain our buy rating in a 475 target. So you got a lot of the Tesla bears coming out and saying, hey, Q3 is going to be good, but once that EV tax credit goes away, it's going to be just one of these lumpy quarters that doesn't have the momentum continue into the rest of the year or the rest of 2026. I mean, maybe that's possible, but in Benchmark's view, that's kind of just something that's going to happen in the short term. And eventually, as rates come down, those incentives likely will go to the upside as people would want to buy EVs, which would be a good thing. Obviously for every EV company, not just Tesla as well. I mean, one thing to watch out for is Rivian, because we might see a little bit of a move on Rivian if Tesla crushes it. Rivian right here, still trying to get an official GAAP profit. And I think by the end of the year, there's a shot they do. I'm not counting on it, but if they do, the stock went from 11 to almost 16 right now. If they can get a GAAP profit fueled by a really strong Q3, maybe that is your upside fundamental case for Rivian doing well. Yes, Nike earnings is tomorrow. I don't think there's that many expectations for Nike. I mean, they had a good quarter last time. They raised a little bit of the guidance. They went from like 52 to 70. Now they're at 69, 70. So yeah, I don't think there's something massive to expect for Nike tomorrow, but I wouldn't be surprised if it gaps up into the 80 range and has a second good quarter in a row and kind of the street can start seeing momentum, or if it stays flat. I don't think it's going to tank back down to the 60s and 50s unless the tariffs really are affecting them and consumer demand is like hurting the brand. But hopefully that wouldn't be the case for Nike. BM&R, update on that. So this stock is up about 2.4% in the pre-market. So you're getting some green right here. It was up about 5% last night. The reason it is up is not only because Ethereum is up, but Tom Lee bought some more ETH. 2.65 million Ethereum is what the company has purchased in the past week. Well, they now have in total, they purchased about 180,000 over the past week. And here is what Tom Lee said this morning about the state of BitMine. As we enter the final months of 2025, the two super cycle investing narratives remain AI and crypto, and both require neutral public blockchains. Naturally, Ethereum remains in the premier choice given its high reliability and 100% uptime. These two powerful macro cycles will play out over decades. Since ETH's price is a discount to the future, this bodes well as the token is the reason for BitMine's primary treasury asset. As we mentioned in our August chairman's message, the power law benefits large holders of ETH. Hence, we pursue the alchemy of 5%. They now have a little bit more than 5 or a little bit more than 2%. And I believe staking begins when they get to 5%. So I think it'll take them probably another, it depends on how aggressive they want to be, but I would say around 6 months to get to that 5%. Maybe they can do it in 3 months. But if they can get that pretty soon, then you begin the staking and you start to see some more momentum from BitMine as it collects a ton of rewards to buy more Ethereum. So that's the update on BitMine, and ETH is green, which is also helping. What do you think about BMNU? This is double leveraged BitMine. I usually tend to stay away from the double leveraged ETFs, especially on something so volatile as BitMine. And sometimes you miss out. Like, for example, if I had bought ROBN, which is the double leveraged Robinhood ETF over just Hood, I would have done a lot better over the past couple months. But the anxiety of holding onto a double leveraged ETF on an asset that could theoretically get cut in half. I mean, that if Ethereum gets cut in half, that's going to hurt BitMine. And same thing with Robinhood. If the market tanked, it would have hurt Robinhood. So, it's one of those things where I kind of tend to stay away from them. And given that you bring that up, I mean, this is another stat that I wanted to show everybody. Leveraged ETFs have seen $7 billion in net outflows in the month of September. which I think is actually healthy. A lot of these products are traded by retail. Retail's either taking profits on them or deleveraging as we get into potentially a more choppy part of the year going into October. And I think that's healthy, and that makes a lot of sense. So you are seeing some of that money come out of the leveraged ETF product market, and I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing in the world. So yeah, if you're super confident on BMNR, BMNU might make sense, but if you kind of just want to save yourself from the anxiety and mental stability of dealing with it going up or down, then I would likely stay away. Did Trump just tweet something? Oh boy, Trump just tweeted something. All right, here we go. Here we go. Commander-in-Chief says, our movie-making business has been stolen from the United States of America by other countries, just like stealing candy from a baby. California, with its weak and incompetent governor, has been particularly hit hard. Therefore, in order to solve this long-time, never-ending problem, I will be imposing a 100% tariff on any and all movies that are made outside the United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Dude, we got to enjoy it. We got 3 years left of this. I don't know if this is going to happen again. So you got to enjoy these updates. I don't know if we're going to have any other president that ever imposes 100% tariffs on movies made outside of the United States. I mean, does it have that much of an impact? Not really. Hollywood's already not really that big of an industry anymore. I don't think it's going to affect the S&P 500 or the broader markets. Is AMC going down? That's probably one of the only stocks that's affected by this. You got a little bit of, it's flat. I think it was up a little bit more, so you got a little bit of a red candle, but nothing too crazy. I mean, I don't know. I don't. You guys know me. I mean, as much of a movie connoisseur as I am, I don't. I don't care that much about movies. Warner Brothers, that one's down a little bit. Does it really affect Netflix? I mean, Netflix at this point has transcended movies. They're down 1.3% on this, but like, they make a lot of content across the world, and I don't know if this is the biggest deal for them. Also, I kind of think this is just Trump negotiating. I don't know if he's actually, I mean, how do you even impose 100% tariff on all movies? Like, what if you're doing a movie that has a certain scene that's in a certain location, right? And like that part of the location is like 10 minutes out of a 90-minute movie. Like, it's just like, then again, there's no details on this because why would there be details? It's just the headline. And that's how we kind of have to navigate. So 100% tariffs from Trump. Real quick, let's just get an update right here on EA. So EA is a company, Electronic Arts, that is now going private. Did not expect to see this, but the Saudis are taking these guys private. They're up 5%. They're up 20% from Friday. There were some option traders that bought $200 calls. They turned about 15,000 into 15 million because why not? So, maybe they had no insider information. Maybe they just got lucky on that. But here's an update on EA officially going private for about 55 billion from the Saudis.
For the fracking revolution, and prices and what happened there. You got Morgan, who I'm told was just brought in a couple of weeks ago. So they weren't part necessarily putting this deal together, which I'm told as well started back in the spring. So there have been talks since the spring. Silver Lake, obviously, the very prominent private equity firm, part of the Dell buyout, part of the Endeavor buyout, part of the TikTok USA purchase we've been reporting on lately, will be an investor, Jared Kushner's firm as well. But Kushner acting as much, if not more, also as somebody putting all the parties together and making sure it all sort of happened along the way. They are both writing checks, that is Kushner's firm and Silver Lake. But the check from the PIF, in addition to the 9.9% that they already own of EA, is by far the largest single part of that overall 36 billion. And that's why I say essentially this is the Saudis taking control of EA, which will become a private company, of course. That's why they call it a go private.
I don't think this one has that much of an impact on the broader market. Obviously, it has an impact on EA stock. But if this trend continues, aka certain companies that have not really been succeeding in the private markets and not really, doing well. I mean, EA before this news, it was relatively flat. It was up maybe 10% year to date. And so this one kind of really helped it play out. Over the past 5 years, it's up 50%, which a lot of that 50% just came in the past 48 hours. This is one of those names that's likely a company that just decided, hey, we're not really meant to succeed in the public markets as much as we thought, especially if money and capital is being allocated in all these different AI names that are out there. So they end up going private. Now, the Saudis being a key part of taking them private, I wonder if that's a continuating trend that we'll see for some of these American companies that just are not liking being a public company. And I'm sure there's plenty of them that would love to go private and would love to have the Saudis backing them to go private. So we got to see if this trend ends up continuing. Are we going to get good video games again? Dude, what is EA's most famous video game? Because I'm not in the video game world. What is EA's, like, yeah, what is the game they're most known for? EA Sports, FIFA? Is that the one? The Sims, Apex Legends? Because the games like Call of Duty, Fortnite, those are like the more relevant games, right? In our generation. Sports, Madden, FIFA. Okay, those are pretty big games. FIFA, Madden, those are huge games, dude. Those are huge games. So makes sense that the Saudis definitely see some value in what they're doing. Oh, we have another Trump tweet. Here we go. Why not? Monday morning. Why freaking not? Here we go. In order to make North Carolina, which has completely lost its furniture business to China and other countries, great again, I will be imposing substantial tariffs on any country that does not make its furniture in the United States. Details to follow. Okay. I guess Trump woke up this morning and was like, you know what? I'm kind of bored. I want to go back to the tariffs. Now, we saw this last week with the tariffs on furniture. I mean, this is what he said this morning is a continuation of those tariffs on furniture. But pharma tariffs were a big deal last week. And then furniture tariffs were also a big deal. So you had all of those that were introduced. Starting October 1st, Trump said we're going to do 100% tariffs on patented pharmaceutical products unless the company is building it in the United States. And then 50% tariffs on kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and associated products starting on October 1st. That's why Restoration Hardware took a bit of a hit. In terms of this new statement of imposing substantial tariffs on any country that doesn't make its furniture, I think the same companies, Restoration Hardware, for example, would be affected. The broader market, I don't know, dude. I think the AI tailwind, which we'll talk a little bit more about, is very strong. And I don't think tariffs on movies or IKEA, for example, is going to mess up the broader markets. But we're going to see. We're going to see what ends up playing out from this. Dude, these are two nice little tariff updates on a Monday morning. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. All right. So going a little bit more deeper into tariffs and the broader economics of what's going on in the labor market, because tariffs have definitely been intertwined with the labor market. Here's a clip from John Gray at Blackstone. This is a clip that Chris shared this morning that I thought was relatively interesting. And this is his argument about where the state of the economy is, where the labor market's going, and what the risk is when it comes to inflation versus owning assets over the next 10 years.
Third thing, inflation. Inflation is cooling around the globe. Everyone talks about sticky inflation, but our data tends to show otherwise. Now, goods inflation in the US, as the parenthetical says, will be sticky, will be higher because of the tariffs. But if you look at the headline CPI that came out last week, embedded in it is rental housing costs at 3.6%. That is very different than what we see as the largest owner of rental housing in the United States. By the way, this is the biggest category, 35% of CPI. We would say that BX-derived shelter costs from our portfolio are a little over 2%, which puts CPI reality at 2.4%, much closer to the Fed's target. Now, it's not just rental housing costs. It's also the labor market. So every quarter we do a survey. We say to our CEOs, what are the things that are keeping you up at night? Is it tariffs, technology? And if you went back to Q1 of 22, the number one thing they said was how hard it was to hire people. When we asked that same question last quarter, that had dropped to number 9. So something is happening here in the labor market. And we see it now in our numbers. I would tell you our numbers are often 6 to 12 months ahead of what you see in the government data, but these are our heads of human resources at our US companies. 4.6% wage growth a year ago, which has dropped below 3% for the first time in the post-COVID period. If I was a Fed governor, this is very encouraging when you think about inflation.
Essentially, the summary of what Blackstone is saying is that inflation's going down, or at least cooling across the world, and growth is going up. And the reason that is so important is because that trend right there, I think, is going to define the next 5 years. Can inflation go down, or at least not go up? And can growth go up at the same time that inflation is going down? Because if both go up at the same time, you obviously get stagflation. And so, or at least if growth slows down and inflation goes up, then you get a lot more stagflation. So we're going to need to really see that trend stay intact, which is that inflation is cooling or coming down. And by the way, the PCE data we got last week was pretty damn good. It's the reason why Friday ended as green as it did. We came in at 2.7% versus 2.7% expected. If that came in the opposite direction, I think Friday would have been a little bit of a tougher day. But the fact that PCE is holding on as strong as it is, and PPI was an amazing beat to the downside, 2.6 versus 3.3 expected. And then JPOW. Last week, I showed this clip a couple times of JPOW saying the tariffs might be a one-time effect. If that continues along with a relatively strong growing economy, upwards of hopefully 3.5%, then I think the market's going to really like that. And that helps us deal with what we've got going on into 2026. Quick update on Palantir. So shout out to GoCarp right here. Palantir got a State Department contract 3 weeks ago, and we covered it on the channel. We officially have the price tag of that contract. 1 year, $410 million. 1 year, $410 million just to Palantir. This is why I think Palantir is going to be able to continue holding its momentum. As you can see right there, it starts on September 29th today. It ends on September 29th, 2026. It is 1 year, not 5 years, not 10 years, $410 million for that 1 year. That is pretty incredible, dude. That is basically half a billion. Palantir does about $4 billion a year. So you're talking about a decent amount of their yearly revenue in 1 year for the State Department contract. And so I think the reason that's also relevant is because you've got people in the business community saying that Palantir's prices in the government are too high. But if the government wants to pay them the high prices, then obviously they're getting reciprocal value, if not better value. And the most funny thing about this is if this contract works out well, Palantir is going to have even more pricing power in the future to charge even more than $410 million per year, because if it is something the government absolutely needs, then you're likely to get more of a benefit for that software. So it is really encouraging to see the money disclosed on some of these types of deals. We know we got the IRS contract last week for $100 million as well. That was on Friday. The more and more this stacks up, to me, obviously is very exciting for U.S. government growth, but it's also really exciting for international government growth, because if Palantir can really prove some of these case studies in terms of the value they're providing to the state government and to all these other subsidiaries of the U.S. government, like the IRS, FDA, CDC, et cetera, hopefully other countries across the world can start to recognize that, and that increases the international government business. And if that continues, then obviously that would be very exciting as well. So that's what we got on Palantir. BM&R right here, that's back at 52 in the pre-markets. Again, this one's super volatile. We're going to see how the markets open. It looks like it's a green open. We got about 15 minutes left. We'll see if it ends up actually being a green open. Ethereum slightly down in the pre-markets, but so far not too bad, which is some of the momentum that we're seeing here. AppLovin, that's up about 2.5%. TLT's up a little bit. Bitcoin's up a little bit. And then the S&P is up 0.5% as well. Okay, real quick, I want to show this update as well. There's a new app in the App Store, and some of you guys told me about this last night in the chat, called Arati. They're getting 350,000 signups a day. This is a new Indian messaging platform taking on WhatsApp and Telegram. They're not only, they're made in India, but they're not only exclusive to India. So it's across the world. It's number 26 in the United States in the App Store, number 13 in Canada, and number 1 in India. They've increased their traffic 100x from 3,000 to 350,000 signups a day. I think this is quite incredible. I don't know how these guys are doing it, but they are doing it. And look, it's not a competitor to WhatsApp in any sense of the imagination yet. WhatsApp has billions of people using it, but it's one thing I think people should keep their eye on, because if this thing actually does end up posing a little bit of a threat to the existing messaging apps, which again is going to be really hard for them to do. This could be like a little one-time flyby situation. The problem is the network effect on messaging is so exponential because everyone sends messages. So if you can really tap into it, you can really grow. Then maybe there's a world where this thing starts to compete. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm confused how they ended up doing this. And I haven't got to the bottom of the story. I don't know if it's like some, random growth hack they did. But if there's anything rooted in AI that's helping a company compete with the dominant forces of the day, and again, I don't know if that's true yet, but it's something that I definitely want to dive into, and that would be very exciting because you got a lot of different smaller apps that are obviously trying to compete with the big guys. And if AI is the tailwind that allows them to kind of get there, or to be able to use it in a differentiated way that some of the big companies might not be using it to grow yet, especially because of regulatory burdens that those big companies face, then that definitely would be something that I think is important to keep in mind. So there is no ticker on it. It's from a private company called Zoho. Zoho is the parent company that does software as a service applications. But the fact that, dude, a messaging app is not easy to go from 3,000 to 350,000 users signing up a day. And that's probably not going to slow down. And so I'm just curious how do they do this? And I definitely want to see how that's playing out. Oh, did Vlad tweet? Did we get an update on Robinhood? Let's see. Yep, there you go. Look at that. Wow. Robinhood prediction markets just crossed 4 billion event contracts traded all time, with 2 billion in Q3 alone. And we're just getting started. So I lost some money on the Penn State game. So when Farzad comes in the chat, we can definitely blame him for making us lose money on that. But it was a thrilling, exciting experience to be following a football game with some money on the line for the first time. It was only like $150, but still, it was pretty exciting. And I could tell how someone would be, I guess, exhilarated by the experience to the point where they would want to engage in a lot more prediction bets. Now, I'm not really like, I don't really have that kind of mentality when it comes to sports. Also, I don't keep up with sports that much. But if you actually keep up with sports and you have 10, 15 grand on the side that you're just going to play with, I mean, like, and you really understand the NFL, college football, et cetera, you understand the different players on the roster that makes a difference in the game. You're able to kind of, let's say, 60 to 70% accurately call a game. You can make a lot of money with this. You can make a lot of money with this if you're really good at it. This just in, sports gambling is exciting. Yeah, I mean, dude, now I get why FanDuel and DraftKings and all these companies have a moat. I mean, it's like, it is exciting to bet on sports. I mean, it's way more exciting than betting on interest rates or betting on like these pop culture topics. Like, sports is really where the moneymakers are when it comes to their prediction markets. So yeah, I'm not deep into sports betting, but it was exciting to do it. And the question is for Robinhood investors, if they did 2 billion contracts in Q3, we can do the math on that later, but you're talking about millions of dollars that are flowing in. They have to be like 95% margins. And that's just going straight to the bottom line. Straight to the bottom line. And to me, it doesn't mean Robinhood's top line has to increase that much, but if their bottom line starts to increase simply because of like this product that Piper Sandler said should be able to do $200 million per year in revenue, which you would argue at least like 180 million of that is net income. I mean, just adding another couple hundred million to the bottom line by the end of the year is pretty exciting. And that would be by the end of 2026. But like, football happens every year. NCAA basketball happens every year. All these events that people love to trade and bet on happen every single year. And so I don't see that product slowing down. I think Robin is going to just try to make it better and better. And from an investor perspective, it's another vertical that they have figured out how to become a dominant player in. And I think there's probably another 15 to 20 verticals over the lifetime of the company that they're going to continue dominating in. Banking, by the way, already started rolling out. Vlad said on Tuesday or on Friday that banking has started rolling out to the first external list of customers. Hopefully, some of us that are in the chat get an opportunity to try out what banking looks like. But that also, I think, is going to be a vertical where they go deep in. So that's what you got on Robinhood. Yeah, in Q3, the NFL season wasn't even just getting started. NFL just began, right? So like realistically, like we're in what, week 3, week 4. So Q4 is really when we're going to see volumes probably spike, and then Q1 you have the Super Bowl, which is probably going to be important as well. By the way, Bad Bunny is the Super Bowl guy. He will be performing at the Super Bowl. I didn't expect them to pick Bad Bunny, dude. I thought they would. I don't know. I thought they would. Bad Bunny's pretty big. I mean, he's like the #1 streamed artist on Spotify. But I thought they would pick someone else. So you got Bad Bunny, who will be at the Super Bowl. Okay, cool. A couple of other AI updates. So our good friend Stephen Fiorillo wrote up a really nice post yesterday on X. I definitely recommend people read it. He says the AI bubble doesn't exist and the bears are wrong. I will link it in the chat. It's a long post, but essentially he uses a lot of numbers, not just opinion or narratives, but a lot of numbers to kind of make the argument that that AI is not a bubble and that the bears are wrong about how they conceptualize the concept of a bubble. And the kind of main argument he makes is that in the dot-com crash, you had a lot of companies that were using debt to finance the build out of network infrastructure to be able to power the internet. And in the AI age, you've got the largest companies in the world, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, that are using free cash flow. And so when you kind of look at the numbers, if they're all generating almost 400 billion in free cash flow and using about 220 billion of that 400 billion to be able to invest in their future, that is not tapping the debt markets. That's not really hurting their net income margins. It's definitely not hurting their free cash flow margins. Their free cash flow margins are the reason they're able to have the free cash flow to invest in CapEx. And that's not hurting their profitability. So investors are able to continue giving them the multiple with the understanding that there will be an ROI off all this CapEx. And by the way, that multiple is not egregious at all. NVIDIA at 26 times forward multiple, Google at 23 times, Amazon and Microsoft at 34, 32 times. Like those are not like 70, 80 multiples that we saw back in the dot-com bubble. That is kind of the core argument for why this discussion of a bubble is starting to become a little ridiculous. And I think it's healthy to have the discussion because it proves that there's skepticism, but it's also like there's a lot of people that want to be the Michael Burry of AI, and they really want to be the person to call that AI is going to end. And usually when you have that many people trying to vie for the opportunity to say AI is over, it's likely not over, which is not the craziest thing in the world. Would you short DraftKings? I don't think Hood's prediction markets is necessarily bearish for all the other sports betting products. I actually think it just expands the pie and more people get excited about it. The question is, how much does Hood kind of go deep? Like, what if Hood comes out with fantasy football? Now, I don't know how they would be able to do that, but if they did, that would be a direct threat to something like a DraftKings. I don't think they exactly would be in that ballpark, especially because of the regulations. But yeah, I don't think it's bearish the other sports companies. I think it just means they're expanding the pie and there's a lot more people that are interested long term. But it depends on how Hood, really tries to attack it in. If they go deeper into that entire niche. Carnival Cruise, we just got their earnings. That stock is up 4.5%. Looks like we got a beat on the top and the bottom. Let me pull up Carnival Cruise and their earnings. Let's see what we've got here. 1.98 billion on net income versus 1.84. That's a beat. Adjusted EPS 143 versus 132. That's a beat. And then EBITDA 2.99 billion versus 2.9 billion. That is a beat. There you go. Carnival Cruise. We know Chris is heavy in this one. I believe he still has his options. This one, he called it 15. Now it's at 32. So about a double in a year. Not too bad. 32.10. That's up 4.5%. Again, as rates come down, the biggest knock on Carnival Cruise and all the cruise lines is that they have a ton of debt. But as rates come down, they're able to refinance that debt in a much more efficient way. And that likely also is a tailwind for them long term. So 32.22 on Carnival Cruise. That one is green. DraftKings is growing almost 40% year over year. Well, see, that's the thing. Flutter, DraftKings, these companies are growing exceptionally. And so that to me is, again, it's not bearish those companies because Robinhood's entering the game. It's actually more bullish Robinhood because those companies and their growth rates are proving that there's a massive market that Robinhood can tap into. And I think that market is very, very large as all three of those players try to attack it. So if that's the case, you're likely going to see more and more people get on it. I mean, the fact that people will join Robinhood just for sports betting is a win because then they have a chance to be upsold on all the other products that exist, which is, kind of, I think their approach to being able to really monetize prediction markets outside of just like the 1 cent they make per contract. This is the S&P 500 buyback list. We have now hit $1 trillion in buybacks in the past 9 months. This is from Bloomberg. This is the largest we've ever seen in 2025. So the executed, or throughout like basically the past 25 years, if the executed buybacks in 2024 around this time were about 850 billion, we are at about 1.1 trillion currently right now for the S&P 500 in 2025. And as you can see, the chart just keeps going up and to the right. It shows that companies have a proclivity to say, hey, like we're gonna buy back our stock if we're doing very well. And the companies that buy back their stock obviously are able to reward shareholders, not only through just the dividend, but actually reducing their float. And even at these multiples, if companies are willing to buy back their stock, you're just seeing more and more momentum that helps support the broader stock market. Now, I think we get into a quiet period over the next 2 weeks because we have earnings coming up and companies are not going to be able to buy back their stock. But still, so far in 2025, we've seen a decent amount of buybacks. So that's what we've got there. Gold, is that at 3,800 yet? Gold is at 3,800. Wow. Again, I know there's a lot of people saying gold and silver are signaling that stocks are going to take a nasty dip. Maybe those people are right. To be honest, I don't think we've seen a time in history where gold and silver are accelerating at the pace they're accelerating, while the equities are not necessarily slowing down, or the equity market's not slowing down. I mean, usually it's one or the other. And, usually if equities are having a massive year, gold and silver is kind of chilling out. That's what we saw in 2024. This year's been the opposite. Gold is destroying the S&P 500 in terms of returns, but it's not like the S&P 500 isn't doing well. And so it would be kind of crazy to see both of these guys massively outperform towards the end of the year. But I think it goes back to the conversation that we were talking about last week, which is that if cash is simply a place where you don't want to be because the dollar is losing value, the currency in the United States is being debased, and interest rates are coming down, which means the return you're going to get in like a fixed rate money market fund is not as substantial as crypto, Bitcoin, gold, silver, copper, the S&P 500, et cetera, then you got to put that money to use. And that money is going to be used in a lot of different ways. Daniel says more global liquidity is going to equal higher gold. I'm happy you bring that up because that is another chart that I wanted to show everybody. M2 money supply continues to go higher. There's a chart right here. There's a lot of theories on the nature of M2 money supply's relationship with the overall equity markets, but at its core, as you can see from this chart over the past 35 years, if we were to lay the S&P 500 on top of this, or Bitcoin on top of this, or gold on top of this, you need the money supply to go higher for there to be more money in the system, more liquidity. And Bitcoin thrives on that. Gold thrives on that. Obviously, the stock market thrives on that. So if that increases, and, we've not seen like full-on quantitative easing by the Fed. We've seen like various types of, I guess you could say, smaller versions of quantitative easing because they haven't been tightening as strong as they've been before. Obviously, rate cuts is another form of easing. But all of that helps liquidity, which is great for people that will hold assets or that want to put more money into assets. S&P 500 right here, 664. Tesla's up about 1%. Palantir's up 1.7. You got Iran, that's up 3.5% on the day. Cypher got an upgrade to $14. That's up 4%. The firm, I believe it was JP Morgan, cited that, hey, Google buying Cypher is an opportunity, and we think the data center space is not slowing down. So you're starting to see a lot more of these upgrades come in. Corey right here is at 120. That's getting some love. CrowdStrike, that's up 1%. Coinbase up 1.73. MicroStrategy, which has been lagging for the past couple months, that's up about 2%, 314. And that one is green as well. Also, speaking of gold, we now have $1 trillion worth of gold in U.S. reserves. So after this rally for the year, which gold is up how much this year? I think it's up more than 30%. Let me make sure. Gold year to date is up, 45%. We have $1 trillion of gold in U.S. reserves. So we're going to see. We're going to see what the United States does with this, but we do have more momentum, and central banks across the world that have gold are definitely feeling the benefit from the gold that they have. Rock Lab right here, that's up about 2%. Dell's up 1%. Archer's up a little bit. GameStop's up a little bit. Let's see if we end out red for the day. Let's do a little poll right here in the chat. We got about a minute until the market opens. So 74% of you said we're going to end out the S&P 500 above 660. So far, we're at 664. Green or red for today? Do we end out green or do we end out red? What do we think? Oklo's up a little bit as well in the pre-markets. You got some of these other names that took a hit on Friday, again, showing the resiliency of this market kind of rebounding. Now we're going to see. We got 2 days left. Maybe it's a head fake. We had the options expire on Friday, and that ended up being not that bad for the broader equity markets. 30 seconds left, but we're going to see as we get into the last 2 days of September, how does this play out? Government shutdown, we'll talk more about that. We'll get updates on that probably Wednesday night. I still believe at the last hour, the government will kind of figure it out, Democrats and Republicans, hopefully, and we won't get a shutdown. Intel, by the way, down about 2.8% right here. But hopefully it's not the biggest deal in the world. And if it does last, hopefully it's only like a week for the shutdown. All right, folks, here we go. Thank everybody for being here. It is Monday, September 29th, 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. Hoodie opens up with a bang, 124.50. Not too bad on Mr. Robinhood. That's up about 2.3% of the day. Palantir up 2%, 181. Tesla 445. Let's see if she can break 447 like she was in the pre-markets. If she does, maybe 450 is on the way, and that would be very, very exciting. Wow, NVIDIA getting a bump as well, 2%. Did not expect NVIDIA to give us that green candle, but there you go. S&P 664, a little bit down from the pre-markets, but that's still green on the day. AMD at 160, Google at 247, Grab at 612, SoFi at 1.5%, BMNR, are we holding 52, 5179, that's up about 2.5%. SMCI, that's up. Ethereum, that's down a little bit. Apple is down a little bit. Jefferies was a little cautious this morning in their note about the iPhone 17 super cycle. That's why Apple's likely taking a little bit of a hit, but overall, iPhone 17 should be way better than the iPhone 16 launch, especially in China, and that should be a boost to their earnings going into Q3. ELF right there, that's up about 0.5%. PayPal's up 1%. Salesforce up 0.5%. Meta, that's up 0.5%. Amazon's up a little bit. Reddit's up 2%. CrowdStrike's up. Coinbase is up. CoreWeave is up. Rocket Lab, that's up 2%. How about ASTS? That stock is up 2.9%. Delta's up. DoorDash is up. Nubank is up. Delo's up. Cisco's up. Not seeing a lot of red. Walmart is down a little bit. Lyft and Home Depot are down a little bit. And when I mean a little bit, I mean 0.08%. So we're not seeing some serious red in those categories. Intel got a little bit more red, down 4%. But not too crazy outside of that. Wow, Tesla, she's going for 440. 449.50. She did not hit it yet. 449.80. Let me check resistance. Oh my, that is a big, big move by Tessie in the market open. Tesla, let's see. Joby's up, Micron's up. 450. There it is. Boom. There it is. It busted right through 450.98. My goodness. Wow. 451 resistance, by the way, is about 15,000 shares, 11,000 shares, 11,000 shares for 451. Hoodie trying to bust it through 125. Not bad. Broke right through 125.12 on Hood. Palantir right there, 179. Tesla 2%, and then NVIDIA up 2.25. Let's see if Tesla can hold 450. That's a pretty monstrous beat through. Grab is right there, is down a little bit at 609. Google's at 240. And it kind of just came all at once. It was at 446. I moved on for 2 seconds, and then it broke 450.98. Got stuck right below 451. There's not a lot of resistance there, so it would not surprise me if it breaks right through. But obviously, this is in anticipation of delivery numbers that are coming out on Thursday, and a lot of people probably are pretty bullish that those delivery numbers surprise. And if they do, that would be exciting. Galaxy right here, that one is up 4.6%. I will be having the Galaxy CEO or president, Mike Novogratz, on the channel. Their team reached out to me like 2 days ago, and they want to be on the channel. So we're going to have them on, I think, on Thursday. So for those that are fans of Galaxy Digital, Mike Novogratz will be someone awesome to talk to. Also, I've seen some of his interviews, and this guy's a crypto OG. So just getting to ask about the broader crypto environment, what's going on with all these Bitcoin miners turning into essentially data center plays, I think will be really interesting. So we'll get him on the show probably on Thursday, and we'll see what he has to say. Meta right there, 748. That's up 0.5%. Salesforce 245. NVIDIA, that's up, wow, 182. NVIDIA getting right back to where it was when the OpenAI deal was announced, which is very, very exciting. SoFi's flat, $28. SoFi's not doing anything. And then Tesla trying to get back to 450. Tesla's trying to get back right here to 450. Ondas, that one from a drone perspective, continuing to crush. That's up 8.5%. That is green. And then Hoodie going for 126. She's trying. Palantir right there, 178. Tesla, the real story of the day, 450. We have not seen 450 on Tesla since December 2024. It's been a long time. It's been a long, long time seeing that. So it is very exciting to see that come back into fruition. Lilly, that's up a little bit. Verizon is down. Duolingo's down 1.4. Duolingo at least holding above 300. Iran, what a beast, dude. This thing was down 15% on a downgrade by JP Morgan on Friday, recovering 7 out of that 15% today as the market opens. I mean, my goodness. And Galaxy, Bitfarm, they're all in the same bucket with Iran in terms of companies that are starting to transition their business models. So I think it's very, very exciting how that's playing out. Lockheed Martin, that's up a little bit. Nubank, that's up a little bit. And then DoorDash, that's up 2.4. Nebius, are we moving? Nebius again in that same bucket. Nebius 111, that's up 3.5%. That was also down on Friday. Iran took all the data center plays down. So it seems like that's getting a little bit of a reversal, which is good. BABA, are we continuing the China move? BABA's up. Wow, 5%. How about JD? JD is up 3%. How about Baidu? Baidu is up another 3%. BABA year to date, it's got to be 30% or more. Never mind. I'm a bit off. 112%. You know, and this is what you need in a bull market. You need China to participate. You need Apple to participate. You need a lot of these companies that have not really been loved by the market. And BABA and Apple have not really been darlings of the market for a while. BABA because of the CCP risk. Apple because Siri can't answer a question. Both of them taking off and really starting to participate in this rally. Tesla right there, 449, still trying to get some green. NVIDIA is surprising to me. I didn't expect NVIDIA to gap up. There's NVIDIA, there you go, 183. There's no massive headlines on NVIDIA this morning. I guess the Jensen interview came out on Friday, and that was exciting, but there's nothing crazy you would see on NVIDIA. So maybe it's just kind of the market catching up with it. Now, granted, maybe it's a head fake for the next 2 days, and then October we get a dump, which I would not be surprised if that's how it plays out. But it is nice to see, dude. It is nice to see NVIDIA get some respect. HIMS, how's that doing? Wow, NVIDIA's not stopping, folks. 183.50. HIMS right there, 58.88. That's up 0.5%. If NVIDIA can break through 185, Tesla break through 450, this would be very, very exciting. AMD joining the party, 161. Joining the party. AppLovin again going for 700, which is wow, literally $1 away. There it is, 700. Dude, congratulations to those in AppLovin. This thing was at 350. In April, it was at 170. And then after their earnings, they fell in August to about 350, 370. They gapped up to 470, came all the way back down to 390. And since then, 700. This stock year to date, is it outperforming Hood? It's not outperforming Hood. Hood's at 200%, but still, it's one of the best stocks in the S&P 500. Wow. That is incredible. Micron, that one, getting a little bit of a boost today. Now, Micron had a great earnings. If you own Micron, I would not be scared of holding onto your shares. They had phenomenal earnings. It's just the stock was up 40% going into the print. So, expecting for it to do a lot more is just tough when the stock's up this much. Year to date, it's up 80%. I mean, a lot of these names, if they ended the year at these prices and were flat until December 31st, it's just hard to be that upset as much as people want increased exposure. If they continue to hold on to these massive moves this year, I think people would still be pretty happy. Bitcoin right there is up a little bit. Ethereum's up a little bit, or Ethereum's still slightly down, about a break even. Bitmine 5274. NVIDIA got a price target upgrade by Jefferies. Really? Okay, so that's probably why NVIDIA is getting some love. They got an upgrade to 240 last week. Jefferies, I'll try to get the exact number, but if Jefferies upgraded them into that 240 range, that's probably what's helping NVIDIA. There's now multiple 240s or 250s on NVIDIA. S&P right there, 0.34. Galaxy still pumping. All right. Again, I don't own Galaxy, but I think Mike Novogratz, a lot of people have heard of him. He's been on CNBC so many times. So I think it will be very interesting to get his perspective on just the state of crypto, the state of these crypto mining companies, etc. That one up 5.5%. That one also, I think this year has done very well. Galaxy year to date, 80%. A lot of these companies pivoted and just tapped into what's going on with AI. And the other thing is, people think, oh, that's bubblish that all these Bitcoin miners are becoming data center companies. It's like, no, dude, they're getting contracts by the hyperscalers. They're getting, in the case of Cypher and TeraWulf, investments by the hyperscalers. Like, Google's not throwing around billions of dollars at Cypher and TeraWulf for the hell of it. Like, no, they're throwing around money because they can see their Bitcoin mining facilities can be transitioned into data center facilities. And Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, they need a ton of data centers. So to me, that's not bubblish at all. To me, that's just productive on the strength of American companies that are able to transition into different opportunities, which is not the worst in the world. Ondas keeps ripping. You're seeing some momentum there. BM&R doing its thing. BM&R 5360. All right, so that's starting to heat up a little bit more. Tesla still 448, not making that big of a move, and then S&P 663. So you're starting to see a little bit of red candles come across. But SoFi, I don't know why the hell SoFi is down. You would think SoFi would reverse. Has not been able to really make a base above 30. But I guess the market's keeping it stuck there. Oklo, that's at 115. That's up 4%. Gold, all-time highs. We saw that in the pre-market. That one continues to get momentum. Quantum on the day. QBTS, that is down. IONQ, that is down. And Rigetti, they're down by like 1%. Nothing too crazy. Rigetti is also down about 1.5. Quantum still, one of the best performing sectors this year, but taking a little bit of a hit. SoFi's down because of HUD banking. See, I don't think HUD banking is necessarily going to be the worst thing for SoFi. There's a massive market for people that want a new bank outside of Wells Fargo, Bank of America, JP Morgan, et cetera. I think a lot of people are going to, go to HUD and SoFi. Now, if HUD ends up coming out with a product that gets the SoFi bank users to leave SoFi, then SoFi has an issue. I don't know if it's going to be that compelling because I haven't seen the product yet to really get, because SoFi and HUD are like neobanks, right? So the experience on both of them should be 100,000 times better than being at Bank of America or JP Morgan. Now, if HUD is 100,000 times better than being at SoFi, there is an issue because if you actually start to see people leave, but I just don't know if it's going to be that good. I think it's going to be a great product. I think it'll probably be better than SoFi. I don't know if it's going to be that much better to get people to leave SoFi. So maybe there's a little bit of a perception of a risk there, but I don't know if that necessarily hurts SoFi that badly. Yeah, and there, as House of Cards says, there's plenty of people that hate HUD, and they're never going to go to HUD banking. So I don't think that commoditizes SoFi. Pinterest right there, that's up a little bit. Circle, that's up 3.5%. HIMS goes red on the day. HIMS has kind of been stuck between 50 and 58 for the past couple of weeks now. AppLovin not slowing down. Market cap on AppLovin, $238 billion, $704. That's up 5.5% on the day. Not too bad. Not too bad. Morgan Stanley maintains underweight on SoFi, raises price target to 18 from 13. Okay, that's why SoFi's down. So they raised the price target, thankfully, from $13 to 18, but they still are underweight. I don't know what more Morgan Stanley wants, dude. I mean, they're growing at 45%. Yes, the tech business is not growing that much, but if that even kind of reaccelerates next year, like their operating margins are getting better. I'm not sure what exactly Morgan Stanley is so upset about with SoFi. But you got that one down about 1% of the day. Now, NVIDIA, she's trying, dude. 185 is that all-time high. She's really trying. Tesla's dumping as NVIDIA's trying. Tesla from 450 to 445. It's tough for Tesla to break through 450, even psychologically. There's a lot of people that are betting for it, but there's a lot of people that are betting against it as well. 446 on Tessie. And then NVIDIA, 183.20. HUD right there, almost back to 126. That'd be very nice to see. And you got the Googs almost at 250. Gemini, by the way, is still at number one, 3 weeks in a row. Gemini is still number one in the App Store, ahead of ChatGPT. Opendoor down 5%. So Opendoor getting a bit of a hit right there. I think the Opendoor CEO tweeted that he sent out a memo to all the employees, and he's like requiring everyone to not work from home anymore. And so you're probably going to get some people that quit just based on that. You're probably going to get, a bunch of people that get fired. So you are going to see some operational changes in Opendoor probably over the coming months based on that new policy. Google right there at 249. Bitcoin, are we at 113 finally? Yep, 113. All right, that should be helping MicroStrategy. All the cruise lines. Wow, Carnival is going down. That looked like a good earnings to me. All the cruise lines taking a bit of a hit. NCLH, Carnival, and Royal Caribbean. But all those are going down. Okay, Tilray is up because Trump tweeted a video about weed. I didn't watch the video, but it was like bullish cannabis, if I'm not wrong. I'll see if I can find the video. But yeah, he tweeted something about weed over the weekend. And yeah, he's promoting CBD oil. This is one of the screenshots of what he tweeted. So that's why I think Tilray's up 35% right here. So there you go. That's what's getting some momentum for it. NVIDIA, oh boy, she's going for 184. Robinhood breaking 126. Let's see if Hoodie can get back to 130. We did crack that last week. S&P is starting to make a move. If NVIDIA breaks 185, S&P likely has a shot of getting to all-time highs today. We're going to see if the market makers let us break through it. Let me check resistance at 184. Wow, she got to 183.73. There's no headline on NVIDIA outside of that Jeffries upgrade, which I'll try to get the price, but I didn't see anything else besides that. 184 resistance is 240,000 shares. 240,000. Hopefully that can break through. Do you have any comments on AEXA? So this is Chamath's SPAC. I don't know what company he's going to SPAC, so I have no idea. I have no comments on this until they release the actual company they're merging with. Which, look, Chamath really hurt his reputation with the SPAC stuff in 2021. I would hope the guy has enough decency to really bring a good company public, not a company that's not profitable, not a company that's massively in debt and all this. So I hope it's a really good company. And I kind of think that he wants to, revive his ability to bring companies public, because if he does a good job with this one, he'll probably be able to bring more public. So I have no idea, but I want to wait until I see what company they end up picking. And then we're going to kind of see what the company ends up merging with. NVIDIA, wow, 184, it touched for a second, for a literal millisecond. We got to 183.83 right here. Let's see if we can break 184 again. And then comes the real challenge. So those 240,000 shares, looks like someone bought them at 184. There's a real quick break. We got to see if we can break higher. Rocket Lab, that's up as well. Rocket Lab is green. There you go, up 3.5%. 127 on Hoodie. Wow, Hood, bro, $5 in freaking 15 minutes. Looks like 121 was just not going to last. The heat map, we're pretty green, folks. Healthcare's down, energy's down, and utilities are down. Everything else, financial, software, tech, consumer defensives are flat. Industrials are up. You're seeing a decent amount of green across the board. Hoodie not stopping, 127.30. And then NVIDIA is still trying to break 184 again. And then Palantir back to 180. AMD 163. Move. Okay, there's got to be someone that thinks the semis are going to have a good week. Like, you don't see semis take a move like this as easily. Yeah, dude, every single semiconductor stock is green besides Qualcomm and Intel. And Intel is like up 40% in the past month. So that's not that big of a deal. Broadcom, ASML, SMCI, Lam Research, Micron's up 5%. No, someone thinks something's about to happen this week with the semis. Someone, or at least the market, I should say, thinks something's going to happen. They usually don't move this aggressively in tandem. Or maybe it's a fake out to end out September, and market's trying to get people to think September is going to be a good end, and then October we die. I don't know. But that is weird. There's no fundamental headline. Robin right there, 126.90. Pelosi's buying maybe more. Maybe it's Pelosi. Navitas, that's up 13%. Another semiconductor name getting some love. Grab has been sluggish. I agree. It's kind of been stuck. I think it's starting to normalize the $6 range. And I think if we hold 6, then that's going to be a win until Q3. But we broke through 650 like 10 times last week. So it would not surprise me getting a run up back there. But you're starting to see momentum die down a little bit. I just hope momentum doesn't take it back down into the 550s. I'm going to hold 6. And I think that's probably a healthy consolidation until earnings. And then hopefully after a good earnings, we have a shot to break into the high 6s, maybe low 7s. But that's what you got right there on Grab at 608. Google breaking 250. SoFi continues to go down. And then NVIDIA, they're not letting her break 184. They're not letting her break 184 yet. Bitcoin, are we moving? Are we moving on Bitcoin? Oh, we're trying. Ethereum's moving as well. ASTS up 5%. They are trying. Again, EA is getting taken out by the Saudis, so that's why that stock is up a ton. 202. I think the buyout price is going to be like 205, 210. So that is also green. Sachin says, amid earnings are about to start in 10 days, and the quarter on my mind, buyers will be good. Earnings will be good. We have no reason to think it will not be. So better to buy now instead of the post-earnings pump. That is a great point. Steve brought that up yesterday as well. Earnings are starting in about 10 days. And I don't know, does anyone realistically think earnings are going to be bad? Does anyone realistically think the financials are not going to crush it? That NVIDIA is not going to crush it? That Palantir is not, Palantir getting a $400 million contract for 1 year today. Like, Hood's going to crush it. All these companies are going to have a great earnings. And so whether or not you think the valuations are justified, there might be a little bit of pull forward on that earnings momentum before they actually report results. And that could happen for NVIDIA. The one red flag about NVIDIA is I don't think they're going to have massive China revenue. So it's not going to be that super big growth quarter that Jensen talked about in Q2. based on guidance because the export controls aren't gone, but it's still going to be a great quarter. AMD kind of had a crappy Q2. If they can reaccelerate data center growth from 14% to maybe like 20% in Q3, that would be awesome. But they've signed deals with Oracle. They've signed additional deals with Meta. They've signed deals with OpenAI. Like, you would think they're going to get some momentum going into Q2. Uber right here, basically at all-time highs at 98. ASTS, that's up 5%. MicroStrategy up 2.8. And then Microsoft up 1%. Is Opendoor still tanking? Opendoor is giving a lot of it back. So that's down 6. SoFi is still down 1%. SLG's down. Pfizer's down. The VIX is actually up a little bit, 4%. Interesting, VIX is up and NVIDIA's up 2% at the same time. A little bit of wonky action in the broader market. Hood right there breaking through 127. How about some of the energy names? Nano Nuclear, that's up 2.5. SMR, that's up 2.3. SLNH, we talked about that last week. That is basically flat. Yeah, AMD is not including China revenue as well in Q3, so that's one thing to care about. LEU, Centrus Energy, that's flat. SEG, Constellation, that's flat. All the energy names are kind of chilling out. Dutch Bros has been struggling. I'm not sure why. And the reason I know this is because this is the only loser in Matt's ETF so far. But this one's been, their earnings are, they're growing at 30%. So I don't know exactly what the street doesn't like about Dutch Bros. In terms of stock draft, so here's what we got. Matt's at 25.9. I'm at 31.7. Steve's at 5.7. Tanner's at 21.98. Trade desk starting to come back a little bit for Tanner. And then Chris is at 8.2. So that's the update on the stock draft. Duolingo recovering a little bit is helping mine. But that's what we've got there. AppLovin continuing to crush it. And Google holding 250. Dutch Bros is overpriced coffee. Well, see, that's what people say about Starbucks. And Dutch Bros theoretically is the replacement to that. But market's not acting like it's the best alternative. Starbucks right there, 84.77. That's up 1.6. What else do we have? Citigroup to integrate Citi Token Services platform with its 24/7 USD clearing solution. Again, more and more momentum in the broader blockchain space, as we're seeing with a lot of these big companies get excited for that. Robinhood right there, 127.67. I showed this chart last week, but stablecoin market cap is now at 359 billion, which is an all-time high. 159 out of that 300 billion is on Ethereum. So you're starting to continue to see more stablecoins build on Ethereum. Solana has about 14 billion of that. And if this just continues for Ethereum, then this would not be the worst thing in the world for that asset. 127.70 on Hoodie. NVIDIA, she's trying. Tesla's losing pretty much everything. Looks like 450, little bit of momentum, not really able to hold up, at least not yet. NVIDIA might go the opposite way, but so far she's holding on. Micron, that's up 4.5%. Yeah, that's kind of the main moves we're seeing. We're not seeing anything too crazy. I don't think we have macro day today. Grab right there, 604. Let's grab maybe 4 cents away from going below 6. BMNR, are we holding 53? We are holding almost 54, folks. Almost 54. Hoodie, 128. Boom. Dude, I did not expect Hood to just bust through 121 to 128 this morning. Did not see that coming, but you got a pretty green pre-market that's flowed into the market open. And that's probably why we're seeing some momentum. It's exciting, dude. That's exciting. You're getting a lot of energy coming through. I mean, what do you think about Rubrik? You know, Sam, if you guys follow him, he's done a couple of videos on Rubrik and some Twitter posts on it. I don't know enough about this company in the software space, so I've not really looked into it. It's not the most exciting to me when I think about their overall TAM. It's up 23% this year. I don't know. I definitely got to do more work on it. I'm not like the most excited to say this is the next big SaaS name that people need to get into. But Sam is excited about it, so I definitely will take a look at it. But yeah, this one's getting a little bit more momentum. In the past month, it's down about 8.4%. Past 3 months or past 6 months, it's up about 34%. 4%. I will say it's one of the SaaS names that's actually done well. Adobe, Salesforce, those have been duds for, the better part of 9 months. And so that one's starting to get some more excitement. Austin says their product rules, but it's expensive. It's worth being excited about. All right. Maybe we'll have to look into this. Where's the cybersecurity names doing today? Palo Alto. Wow. Even cybersecurity actually making a move today. Dude, it's like across the board. It's not just semis, it's not just tech. I'm seeing a lot of names participate today. AppLovin, my goodness, 6%, 710 on this thing. Goodness gracious, dude. That's getting some love. Again, SoFi's down because of the downgrade they got from Morgan Stanley. It was technically an upgrade with the price target, but still a downgrade in terms of their buy or sell rating. But also, dude, SoFi was $8 in April. Like, if it ends out the year at 27, that's a 4x. Or a 3.2x. So you can't be that upset about it. But I do think, probably close the year above 30. Might just take some more time to get up there. Yeah, S&P 500 funds could be accumulating hood. That could also be the reason. I don't know the exact rules on if they have to do it in one day. So if it takes like a couple weeks for them to match their accumulations to their benchmarks in terms of the portfolio percentage allocation weightings, then that could be a reason you're getting some love on hood right there. Tesla, again, losing most of it. NVIDIA kind of stuck at 183. I'll take it. I'll take 183. But it is getting stuck there. Eric Adams has dropped out of the New York City mayoral election. So it's going to be Mamdani versus Cuomo. I've got a headline from Trump right here. Trump threatens to withhold money if Mamdani wins the NYC election. That would be quite interesting. I think Mamdani is probably going to win. If you look at it, it's pretty obvious that he's in the lead. And I don't know if Mamdani can, or I don't know if Cuomo can easily beat that. Now, would Trump actually hold funds if Mamdani wins? I don't know. Trump might. Who knows? He's Trump. But that would definitely be something to watch out for if he ends up winning. November is when we're going to get that election. And we're going to see what happens there. So early November, we will know who is running New York City. Nike, that's at 69.33. That's flat. Grab holding above 605. And the hood just not stopping, dude. 128.30. Not stopping. Trump endorsing and pushing Cuomo is not doing him any favor in New York City. Yeah, dude. We've talked about Mamdani's campaign for a long time, but it's a very grassroots, organic campaign. And the level of excitement in New York for him is something I've never seen before. I don't live in New York, but I'm close to New York. And just from anecdotally people I've talked to, people really want change in the city. And they think that Mamdani is the best way to access change. The problem with Adams and Cuomo is it seems like it's the same old. And sometimes people are willing to take a risk, even if that risk is communism to an extent. I know it's not literal communism, but certain policies that are more in line with that type of philosophy over the same old thing. And that's what we might see happening in New York. Now, if Cuomo wins, that would be really quite something, because right now every poll has him losing. So that's going to be something. We'll cover it live in November. We'll see how it ends up playing out. Microsoft right here is up about 0.5%. Palo Alto is up a little bit, and then Microsoft is up 3% as well. Circle's up 7%. All right, so stablecoins getting a little bit of love. That is green. Wow, 7%, 135. Now it's down a lot from the 200 level, but at least it's up above 120. What other headlines do we have? So again, for those that didn't join earlier, Trump is tariffing movies by 100% if you're made outside the United States. So that's one thing that we're going to see if that has an impact. Where is Netflix right here? Is Netflix still getting an impact by that? Netflix? No, Netflix goes green. It was down in the pre-markets off that headline. Now it's green. There's a massive internet outage in Afghanistan. That's one headline we have. China Commerce Ministry urges U.S. to stop unreasonable oppression on Chinese firms. Urges U.S. to correct the wrong practice. Opposes U.S. export control measures. All right, so the China Commerce Ministry coming out with a bunch of different statements today. Likely their attempt to negotiate as well with the United States. And the Apex Summit is at the end of this week. So Trump NG, I believe, will be talking at that summit, or at least trade representatives from the United States and China will be talking, which theoretically could be nice for a potential deal, at least closer to a potential deal. Wow, hoodie, 129, dude. What is going on today? 6% move. I did not see coming for hood. I mean, it took such a beating last week from 130 to 121. I thought it was going to chill out around most 125. Breaking through 129 is pretty incredible. I mean, Vlad did tweet about prediction markets. You have banking that's coming out. I don't know if those are headlines to really make it move that heavily. It could just be S&P 500 accumulation. S&P still up about 0.5% on the day. Big Bear AI, that's down 1.4. That was at 750 last week. So that one taking a little bit of a hit to the downside. App Lovin' moving, and then hoodie still moving. Farzad, you're not supposed to send a super chat. You're not supposed to give me money. We're supposed to bask in the glory of getting to blame you for losing money. I don't want your money. I just want the dopamine of knowing that you were wrong. That's all I want. As a Rutgers alum, I'm literally going to Apple Pay you this $100. I don't want your money because you see, the money is absolving you of the guilt. I don't want you to be absolved of the guilt. I want you to feel guilty forever. And so don't think that money solves your problems, buddy. Do not think that money solves your problems. I told you they would lose. It's Penn State. I told you. Now, granted, they were pretty damn close to winning, bro. Double overtime, they were pretty damn close. But it is what it is. It was actually a really good game. Penn State is not as bad as I thought they were. They're a pretty damn good team, dude. It was a fun game to watch. It was really exciting to bet on it. But it was Penn State. We knew it was going to happen. It was Penn State. So thank you, Farzad. I appreciate the super chat. But in reality, it was actually really good that you told me to bet on them because I got the dopamine of like experiencing what people experience when they bet on a football game. Like I've never bet on a football game before. It's kind of addicting, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Like it's thrilling, especially if you're right, which is how gamblers get super addicted to it. But if you know about sports and you're able to take some educated bets, like it's pretty fun. I just don't know that much about sports, so it's not too bad. It was a fun experience. Nvidia right there, still holding 182, hoodie 128.75, and then Tessie trying to break through 450, stuck at 442, got almost to 451 today. It's losing decent chunk of its gains today, but obviously the Thursday deliveries are going to be what everyone looks for, and that hopefully can help Tesla. What games did you guys watch over the weekend? Was it the who won against the cheese guys? The Packers and the Cowboys. Wait, this thing says 40-40. Was there no winner? There's allowed to not be a winner? Really? There's a tie? I've never seen that before. That's how good the game was? It was a tie? Bro, that is crazy. I've never seen that before. I didn't even know you could tie in football. I didn't know that was a thing. You can't tie in basketball. You got to keep playing. Like, dude, that's wild. I've never heard of that. After overtime, it's a tie. 4-hour game. Holy crap, dude. Dude, that game was still going on when I ended the future stream. That means it went on for another 2 hours after that stream. That is wild. Okay, well, it seems like that was the big game over the weekend. Okay, there you go. Hoof, thanks for the super chat. Penn State gave Mizzou, my alma, their best quarterback. Yeah, I don't know that much about the different players on the team. All I know is it was a fun game to watch. And it was almost like Penn State was going to lose. In the last 3 minutes, they came back, and then it went double overtime, and then they ended up losing. But it was pretty exciting. Oh, the Europeans won the Ryder Cup, which I know nothing about. Everyone told me the United States would win, but shout out to the Europeans for winning it. I did not watch that, but it is nice to see the Europeans win that one. Amazon right there, 221. Meta, 748. Salesforce, 243. And you got AMD that's up. Wow, Duolingo making a move. Let's get this bad boy back into the 350s. That would really help with the stock draft. Duolingo right there, 332. Oh yeah, I did see that the Mets got out of the playoffs. And I remember last night that Stephen Cohen owns the Mets. So kind of sucks for the Mets, but MLB playoffs are starting. And again, that will be another vertical for people to bet on games on Robinhood. So I think the sports season is just going to be printing money for the prediction markets. And that is definitely bullish just in terms of their net income growth on juicy 95% margin revenue that's going to be coming in. NVIDIA still holding 183, and then hoodie 129.20. I'll check resistance for 130. It looks like it wants to break it. But just a big move on Robinhood today, up 6%. 130 resistance on Hood is 53,000 shares. Why does Oracle keep selling off? Well, Oracle last week did something that kind of pissed off the market, even though, the market should have expected it. Oracle at 280. They took on corporate debt. So they took on 13 to 15 billion of corporate debt by issuing bonds that is not using their internal finances to be able to build out these data centers. That's tapping the debt markets. Now, the corporate bonds are paying about 6.5%, so it's a pretty good rate. But I think the stock market was like, well, we really liked your RPO growth, but now that you guys haven't really shown that revenue yet, and you're using corporate debt to finance it, maybe we shouldn't be the most excited. That's up 70%. That's not a bear thesis on Oracle, but are you going to give it a multiple at the tune of $350? No, probably not. So this one coming back to normal, I think, is actually also really healthy. And it's not bad to see that. But I still wouldn't touch Oracle here, dude. As much as I think I want to see them have a good quarter where that RPO actually translates into revenue. That would be important. And then number two is this thing is still up 100% from the lows of April. So it's not like you're buying a cheap stock. It's made a big move. You got to really be confident that move continues. Now, 5 years from now, is it higher than 280? Probably. But is 280 the best deal? I don't know. So we're going to have to see how the earnings ends up turning out. Wow, Hoodie really making the push for 130. 129.50. HIMS breaks 60 for the first time. Wow, in a couple of weeks. Were we at 60 last week? Nope, we weren't at 60 last week. Last month, we weren't at 60 last month either. Last time we were at 60, August 5th. It's been about 2 months since it broke 60. Not bad. Not bad to see that. Galaxy, that's up 8%. Hood, 130.07, all-time highs. Yes, I think the prediction markets are good for Hood. I don't think that's the reason it's up 6% today. I think there has to be something else. Maybe that is the reason. Well, also, it did break 130 last week, right? So getting back up there would not be the craziest thing to imagine. We've got to see if it gets there. We talked about Fermi last week. It's a technology. It's a Texas company for nuclear reactors, energy company. 13 billion, no revenue, and they're naming one of their reactors the Donald J. Trump reactor. I'm not participating in that IPO, guys. I don't have the best feeling about it. I think it'll do well because it's in the energy space, but no revenue, 13 billion. They're obviously appealing to the Trump administration by naming one of their reactors the Donald J. Trump reactor. The whole thing seems fishy. It just seems kind of weird. Having said that, if Oklo can get to freaking 25 billion with no revenue in the nuclear space, I mean, maybe Fermi can as well. So I think the IPO will do well. I don't think it's going to be a flop. I don't think it's going to be like Klarna. But I likely do not want to participate in it. I don't want, the thing is, I would want to flip Fermi. But because of the stupid IPO rules, you can't flip it. So it's I definitely don't want to hold that thing for the next 60 days. No way. There's just too much risk, I think, in holding it. By the way, Klarna below the IPO price. So this IPO has just been disgusting. I mean, they've been trying to IPO for 2 years, and they did it at a good time, but not enough excitement into the IPO. That stock right there now down 3.5%. Palantir right there, 180, and then Hoodie, 129.22. How about Figma? Is that one getting hit? Figma, yeah, Figma's been flat around 50. This is likely where Figma should trade. I mean, I don't think this is a horrible price for Figma. Market cap's at 25 billion. They went public at around 40. This is reasonable. 150 was kind of stupid. And so I think Figma is just going to have to put up earnings growth to continue getting the growth. The grabby grab, we drop below 6. I mean, I would not mind buying more. Let's see. Let's see if it actually loses 6. If we lose 6, if we lose more, 598, 599, because that's where it bottomed out last week, then I think we'll actually get a nice draw down to like 585, 590. But this is where the buyers have to come in potentially. It's either now or they're going to come in around 580, 570, because that's probably where I would come in. App11 right there, that still continues to go higher. 711 hit 715 at one point. Bitcoin, we go to 550. I don't know if we go to 550. 550 would be aggressive. I wouldn't mind 550 to be honest. Because I think when you have this type of action, like that type of volume that came in to grab over the past month, that volume is signaling something. So if we get a dip back down to those levels, like I would easily buy that dip and kind of just load up there. But I don't know, 550 I think would be kind of aggressive to see if we get there. Bitcoin 113.6, Bitcoin still moving. AMD also not stopping. Hoodie, she's trying to make the push. Let's see. Let's see if we can get there. PayPal's up 2% today. Wow. PayPal actually waking up. PayPal waking up. AMD, wow, 163 on this bad boy, 2.5. It's at 157 last week. And then Amazon's up 1%, which is amazing because it's Amazon. I think Amazon's going to need a good Q3. I think they're going to need a really strong Q3. And until we get that strong Q3, it's going to be tough to see Amazon make its move. And honestly, their margins, all that shit doesn't matter. They need to show AWS is back to like growing way faster than what it was in the past. If they don't, I think they're going to keep getting compared to GCP and Azure, even though they're on different bases. You know, AWS is just way bigger than those guys, but still, that would be the headline. Oh, we got some housing data. Hold on. Let me pull up to this. Let's see what's going on there. I think this is pending home sales for the month of August.
Hey, Carl, pending home sales in August rose 4% from July and were 3.8% higher year over year. That is a strong beat. The street was looking for flat. This count is based on signed contracts, so it's a forward-looking indicator of closed sales in September and October. Now, mortgage rates in August, when people were out signing these deals, were slightly lower than they were in July, but not as low as they are right now. Last week, we saw a huge jump in sales of newly built homes, which are also measured by signed contracts. And while most expect it to be revised lower, all agreed that the trajectory for sales overall is higher because of falling interest rates. Now, a survey of realtors showed 19% expect an increase in buyer traffic over the next 3 months. That's up from 16% last month, but fewer expect an increase in seller traffic compared with July. We did see inventory in August fall for the first time since the start of this year. Sales increased in 3 out of 4 of the regions, with just the Northeast dropping. Sales were strongest in the Midwest. Of course, that's where homes are cheapest. Sarah, back to you.
That's not bad. That is pretty decent home data, similar to what we saw last week with the new home sales and the overall homes that were sold. 800,000 new home sales, 4 million overall homes in the month of August. Dude, that's not too bad. That's really not too bad. So it looks like pending home sales continue to be strong. Northeast a little bit weak, but every other part of the country doing okay. Mortgage rates, again, came down a little bit last week. They're not down as much as people thought they would be down after the rate cuts, but they are still starting to come down a bit more. And now we just got to see if that can continue. Hoodie, again, 129.70. We touched it. It's trying to get there. It is trying to get there. Maybe we can see if we break 130. I think it's so close that I think it wants to break through. It'd be very weird if it kind of just gets stuck at this range. And if it breaks through 130, I don't think it's going to be like last time where it broke through for like a millisecond. I think it's actually going to break through, which would be really fun. Snyder, thank you for the super chat. Hood leaps are leaping. Hood leaps are leaping. If you've got some hood leaps, I am not in any hood leaps. You know, one of the leaps I was thinking about, one of the spreads I was looking at that might be kind of attractive. It's actually on our boy BM&R. The risk to reward is pretty incredible. So if you think BM&R doubles in a year, the 100-105 call debit spread by January 2027, it's giving you a 10x right now. And I think if BM&R even gets to 80 or 90 in a year, which, you know, you don't have to hold on to see if it gets to 100, then that you can still make a 4 or 5x from that. It's one of those that I was looking at, which is not doing too bad, especially if you don't want to buy the stock. If you just want to, make a $10,000 bet, and if you're right, that 10,000 goes to 100,000 if BMR actually gets to 105, which I don't know the mechanics on how much ETH they need to have for it to go to 105. But if Tom Lee gets to the 5% by mid 2026 and starts staking, and Ethereum's closer to like 7,000-8,000, I think it's closer to 100 than not. So now HOOD leaps are a bit more expensive because HOOD has already made a bit of a move. So if you bought them a while ago, you're doing well. But BMR still is, not made a massive move. So maybe that could be a different spread to look at. Amazon spreads, I'm not against that. If you think Amazon's headed around that 260, 270 range in a year. Also, January 2028 spreads are out. So even the BMNR, I was looking at 90, 95 call debit spreads. Those are also relatively attractive. Let me just do the math again on those. BMNR, if we go all the way out to 2028, you buy the 90, sell the 95. Yeah, dude, those are traded. Those are a 10x as well. I mean, dude, that's something look, if you think BMNR is going to be 95 by 2028, the spread right now is about 55 cents. Now, I don't know how much liquidity is there. I don't know if you'll get actually filled at 55 cents, but even if you paid $1 for it, that's a 5x in 2 years. If you end up getting 50 to 60 cents, that's about an 8 to 9x. And if you get 50 cents, that's like a 10x. But there are some opportunities with these leaps in the future if these stocks end up making a move. The question is, will they make as big of a move as some people are expecting? S&P, that's up at 664. Hoodie losing 129.70. Still back below the 130. It could be 90 by December. That's another reason I was looking at those spreads. Because if you get a massive move, you don't have to hold on for a year, right? You'll be up a decent amount in a short period of time, especially if Ethereum really takes off, and then boom, you can take your profits and move on. So it's one thing to think about. Ethereum right there, 41.85. Again, rates are coming down. There's going to be more opportunities for money to get allocated into different sectors. CleanSpark right there, that's up 9% on the day. Iran, is that still moving? Iran up 7% on the day. Bitfarms, that's up 6%. And then Cypher and Wolf continue to go up. Cypher right there, up 5%. Bitcoin, 114. There you go. Getting some momentum. It touched 113.9. MicroStrategy, hopefully that's up about 5%, just up 4%, 321 on MSTR. Not too bad. Not too bad. Skeeby says, unpopular opinion, BMNR is not staking right now because they've been shorting ETH for a favorable price action to get more in favorable price before staking all of it. That's an interesting theory. I've not heard of that before. BMNR is shorting Ethereum so they can drive the price lower, issue shares at a premium, buy more Ethereum at cheap, and then stake it. I mean, I can't say that's a crazy argument. I don't think that's necessarily what's happening, but that would be pretty wild if Tom Lee is doing that behind the scenes. Dude, he's shorting this shit. So everyone's crying that Ethereum's down, and he's like, dude, I want it to go down. That would be kind of wild. Okay, let's see some of the other headlines we've got going on. Apple right there, that's at 254. Tesla's up 1%. Hoodie, 129.30. Are you buying Orbs? No, dude, I'm still not convinced on Orbs. I don't really see the vision as broadly as Dan Ives does. I think it's a cool idea. I think it can work out, but in terms of use cases, Orbs versus Ethereum, I don't see the use case being as substantial. So I have exposure to it via BitMine, but actually buying it, I don't know. It's a bit aggressive to be that excited about it. But if we get more data, then more people are signing up to it, then I don't think that's horrible. QBTS, that one exploding today. So Quantum making a move. Wow, 28.28. You're getting some love on Quantum. It was held down in the pre-markets for a little bit. IONQ still down, and Rigetti, is that one still down? Rigetti now going green. D-Wave is the one that's breaking up. BKKT, Mike Alfred joined the board of this company. This is another Bitcoin company, 35% up. Bitcoin treasury / exchange / financial services company operating in crypto. That one, 24.18, continuing to lead with the momentum that it had last week. Grab, are we below 6? There we go. We are below 6. Okay, but it's not really below 7. I mean, 5.99 to 6. It's basically teeter-tottering on that 1 cent. We got to see it actually break down into the 5.90s. So let's see if it gets there. Tom Lee did say in an interview that ETH is lower than 4K is kind of ideal. Yeah, I mean, look, he's not depressed about ETH going down. I mean, I don't think he looks at BMNR's price as much as people think. He is just focused on accumulating. And I've adapted the same mentality, dude. Like BMNR's at 53 today. It could be at 47 tomorrow. Like it's just not something to get stressed about. It's great for trading, dude. I mean, it's phenomenal if you're trading this thing up and down. But if you're holding it, you kind of just hold it and deal with the volatility. Yeah, I see that Orbs is another company starting a world coin treasury. I didn't see that, but I saw that Orbs, they're targeting 8% of the overall world supply. That's kind of their goal that they announced today. So kind of that same alchemy of 5% thesis on Ethereum they're trying to do with Orbs. And we got to see, if the coin continues to get more momentum in terms of world coin, then maybe that happens. What do you think about Grab Leaps? Grab is another one I was looking at in terms of Leaps. So the price target I was looking at was 7 and 12 on a spread for 2028. Let's see how it's priced right now. January 2028, if you think Grab is at least $12, you buy the 7, you sell the 12, so it's a $5 spread. It's trading at 85 cents right now. That is about a 6x. $5 spread trading at 85 cents. So that one as well. I mean, I think in 2.5 years, Grab's above $12. I think that's a pretty decent spread as well. And I think a lot of these names that are beat up, at least some of the leaps for 2028 look a bit more interesting, which is not too bad. Upstart, that's down about 7%. Upstart probably moving with SoFi. Both of those down about 7% on the day. Chels, thanks for the super chat. Think about MNMD psychedelics. So the reason I don't look at the psychedelics stocks too much is because they're small caps. And so A, there's not a lot of liquidity. B, the entire sector is still rooted in like biotech. At the end of the day, these psychedelics have to work, like the drugs have to be effective. And so it's risky is what I'm trying to say. This stock in particular, market cap of 450 million. You just kind of don't know how these end up playing out. Year to date, it's up 50%, so it's done very well so far this year. It's just to get any reports of their psychedelics not working or not able to make their sales numbers, like these things can easily take a hit. Now, I've never done psychedelics. I've seen interviews of people that have, and they definitely stand by the claim that psychedelics are very, very effective, especially if you're dealing with depression and things of that nature. But I still kind of see these as biotechs. And biotechs are very, very volatile when it comes to, ultimately, when it comes to if the drugs work or not. Psychedelics is another weed bubble. But there's not that many psychedelic companies, right? Like in 2020, the weed bubble was crazy. Like there was a new weed stock every day. Mind Medicine, I mean, I heard about Mind Medicine back in 2021, so they've always been on my radar, but I've never seen, like Atai, isn't that another one that, what's his name? Yeah, Atai Life Sciences, Peter Thiel is big in this one. Is this one doing as well as Mind Medicine this year? Wow, 200. Okay, so I guess there's a little bit of a momentum across psychedelics. This one's up 230%. Now, all time, it's down 70%. So there's definitely bag holders from that 2022 time. But yeah, these names definitely are a little bit more inside of that biotech category. Amit, you don't need the drug. You are the drug. That's fair. Dude, I have a Keurig machine. I got it. I went home for the weekend. I brought back a Keurig machine. And like, I'm not a big coffee guy, but a little bit of black coffee in the morning is not too bad, dude. It's a little bit nice little jolt. Like I did it for the past 2 days and I'm like, oh, it's not horrible. But again, I'm not a coffee guy, so I don't know if I'll really get into it. But I have the Keurig now, so I might try drinking a little bit more of it. All right, Hoodie, let's see if she can break through 25 cents. Let's see if 130 can break through. Look at it growing up right. But dude, I'm going to be 28 in 28 days, literally in 28 days. So maybe I usher in being 28 with some coffee. Oh, there's the moment. Here we go. 10 cents. Can she do it? 130, 130. A mid on acid would be an alternative universe. Could you imagine I did the market open on acid one day? Like, I know people joke about me being on blow, but could you imagine if I was actually on blow doing the market open? Like, it would be the craziest market open ever. It would be the craziest. All right, come on. 130. She's trying. 129.98. Let's see. It's almost the 10:30. There it is. 130. Back to 130. All right. So we got 130. Now let's see if she can break through. Oh, yeah. She's breaking through. 130.15, 130.16. Let's see if it can hold or if it's just a slight move on the day. 130.20. Dude, it was not in my bingo cards to see Hood go up $9 today and completely reverse everything that happened last week. Look at that, baby. 130. 130 on the day for Hoodie. 130.28. It also kind of makes sense because it broke through last week, but it was such a like flimsy breakthrough that you would imagine if there was any level of momentum, it would break back again. And there you go. Breaking through again. We can't ring the bell. We already rang the bell last week for 130. It's got to give us 131 for us to ring the bell. It's got to give us 131. Which, who knows? Let's check resistance, bro. I mean, maybe. If we could just hold 130 for the day, I'd be happy. But 131. 131 is 9,000 shares. I mean, there's a shot. There is a shot. Google right there, 249. S&P 664. Tessie 443. Amazon 221, Reddit's at 244, AMD 2.35% up on the day. S&P is flat. S&P is actually up 0.5%. Nvidia, by the way, at the same time, Hoodie breaking 130.3. Nvidia once again going for 184. It touched it, now back to 183.50. And she is touching. Oh, we didn't even talk about Eric Trump, bro. Eric Trump, this is your buy signal for Q4. Last time he said this, we went higher. Buy the dips. Buy the dips. We got to see. We got to see. Maybe this is the signal. And he means Bitcoin and Ethereum, basically. Which, again, if those two explode, Hoodie, Coinbase, MSTR, BMNR, all of those guys get the benefit. Wow, Hood's really trying for 131. She's trying. She is trying. Shout out to Doug hitting all-time highs in his portfolio today. Congratulations. I mean, Hood, 7% day on Hood can really help a lot of portfolios. SoFi's down because of a downgrade today. I wouldn't take the downgrade that seriously, dude. If you're in SoFi, I know it sucks not breaking above 30, but I think give it one more quarter, let rates come down another 25 bips. SoFi should easily be above 30. So it is what it is. You're going to get some downgrades sometimes, but I don't think anything structural is broken on SoFi at all. It's just probably going to take another quarter to really show some stronger momentum. All right, Grab just broke 599. There you go. So this is what I was looking for. Let's see, 597. Now I think all bets are off the table. Breaking through last week's low, all bets are off the table. If we start to see a slide down to 585, 590, I will be a buyer. But I do want to see if that ends up crapping. Wow, Hoodie, 10 cents away. Less than it was 5 cents away from 131. Oh my goodness, dude. That is close. That is freaking close. Yeah, all-time high is 130.94. Yeah, it wasn't really a downgrade on SoFi, but I mean, they rated it a sell, even if they increased the price. So, you know, any sell target you get from the street can definitely hurt. But that's why I think that one's down. And same thing with Grab. I mean, they didn't get any price target decrease or anything. I mean, they did get a hold from, I think it was, I forgot the name of the bank. Might have been Morgan Stanley. JP Morgan upgraded them. But last week, that's what kind of caused a little stopping of its momentum when it got that hold. 597, it did hit 596. Let's see if it breaks below. S&P up 0.44. And then Hood really trying to go for 131. Really trying to go for 131. Yeah, that was the pseudo downgrade from Morgan Stanley. What else are we seeing right here? So I don't think we have any other Trump headlines right now. No market headlines. We got the home sales. That was pretty damn good. We talked about the China updates. Binance launches crypto as a service. Binance, our product is an end-to-end infrastructure and technology solution tailored specifically for large regulated financial institutions. More and more of these companies bringing crypto solutions to the broader marketplace. You know, SoFi is thinking of doing something like this in regards to crypto as well, and Nodo hinted at that with their own layer one. So you're going to see a lot more of these players try to tap into the market. And the beautiful thing about this is that only increases the asset prices for the cryptos that they build on, whether it's Solana, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Avalanche, etc. And the legislation, as per the Genius Act, I mean, it's all conducive to helping these companies continue to maximize their efficiency via crypto. So a lot of these companies can take risks like a Binance and not be worried about what legislation will look like. Okay, Hood still trying to go for 131. 130.94 was the all-time high. BMNR, we at 54 yet. We are at 54, 7% day on BitMine, which is very nice. And then Grab struggling right here, down about 2.5. Did hit 595 at one point. App Lovin's at 715. Circles at 7.3%. And then Tesla is still down. It is not my birthday today, but thank you. My birthday in about 28 days. But not today. We got 2 days left of September, folks. Be very curious to see how we end out the month. I mean, if we just hold 664, that's a hell of a way to end out September. And if Hoodie can end out at 130, that would be a fun way to end out September as well. So we got to see. We got to see. Admit the Grab dip is fake. Look at the premiums. Nothing. Yeah, dude. Also, the calls on Grab are getting ridiculous. I mean, like the amount of people. Wow, 131, baby. 131 blasting right through. Goodness gracious. Ladies and gentlemen, we have hit a new all-time high on Robinhood at 131. Bro, what is going on today? She's waking up at a level that when's the last time we saw an 8% day on Hood? Last time was S&P inclusion that we even got anywhere close to this. My goodness, dude. And she's not stopping. 131.20. 131.20. That's pretty incredible. Is it going through price discovery? I guess. I mean, like, look, when you're at an all-time high and there's no volume volume above these levels, there's no volume shelf resistance, then like you kind of have nowhere to go but discovering new prices. And if the momentum helps the discovery of those new prices, it tends to be that the new prices are much higher, which is the fun part about price discovery. And so we just got to see if it can hold up. Maybe it's S&P inclusion, dude. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it's big pension funds. I really don't know the sort of science or logistics on how a stock is accumulated into the S&P and what time frame the funds have to be able to buy that stock. I would imagine it doesn't happen in one day. That seems a bit like aggressive. So if it takes some time to accumulate, maybe there's like a window of a period they have to buy the stock to match the portfolio allocation, then that could be the reason. That could be the reason. There you go. Hoodie right there. 130, 130. What I was saying about Grab is that the calls are going crazy for Grab. I mean, if you look at the actual options data, the put call ratio is below 0.05, aka people are trading the calls way more than they're trading the puts. And I mean, even look on a day like today, where Grab's down 3%, 18,000 calls have been traded, 1,300 puts have been traded. Now, that doesn't mean, everyone's buying all those calls and it's super bullish, but you definitely have more momentum to the call side versus the put side. And it's been a put call ratio below 0.1 for like the past 3 weeks, all of September. So yeah, do I think that dip is kind of fake? Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of this price action is not necessarily realistic. Now it is, up a lot from 470. So I understand why it's going to consolidate up and down. You're going to have these days 3-4% up, 3-4% down, but I think the trend is still higher. And if they give us a good Q3, that likely continues. Wow, hoodie 131.40. My goodness. Hood has about 1 billion shares outstanding. So that's up about 10 billion in market cap today. A little bit less than 1 billion shares. 131.63 it hit today. And it's not slowing down. Yeah, I think it has to be S&P inclusion. It has to be. Captain Day says, figure I wrote 135 covered calls on Hood this morning. Might need to roll them already. I would give it definitely a couple of dollars. I'd see if it actually can break through. It's got to hold these levels now, right? It's got to really start to normalize the 130s. But, dude, could you imagine we normalize 130? Because we've been stuck in the 105 to 125 box for basically 3 months. If we can get out of that, that would be exciting. Steve downgraded Hood today. Did he put out his article? I didn't know he was doing a downgrade. Did Steve freaking downgrade our hoodie today? Okay, he put a hold on the stock, which not really a downgrade, but I guess that is kind of a downgrade. It's funny. Steve has started to use Robinhood for the prediction markets and Ethereum a lot more, but he's just so against buying it. And I don't know what more you could possibly say to get him to be interested in the stock, given now he's a user of the product, but it is what it is. Hoodie does not care about his downgrade today. She's moving higher. She's moving higher. Amid, how screwed am I on my 127, 129 covered calls expiring this week? I don't think you're screwed at all. Hood's $3 above your strike. Just roll it. I would roll it right now. Right? Or at least towards the end of the day. If we hold 130 by the end of the day, I would roll it. But yeah, dude, if you're within 5 to 10% of your strike on a covered call, you should not be panicking. If it gets to your 20 to 25% away from your strike, yeah, then you're more underwater than you thought. But if your strike is at 129 and the stock's at 131, that is not a time to panic. That is just all right, I need to adjust this position, move on, roll it forward, try to see if I can get closer to the price. Especially if you don't want to lose the shares. But it's not something I would get too upset about. It is quite incredible. This is quite incredible. 130, 120 on Hood. Amit, what do I do with my SoFi calls for $15 January 2026? I'm assuming you bought those, didn't sell them. If you sold them, though, that's a situation where they're kind of underwater. You would have to roll them out a year or two to get them out. My dad has $10 calls on SoFi as well. I'm thinking more so the same expiration to sell those in December. I think SoFi is a really good Q3. And if we have an overall market rally, we should see SoFi. I really do think above 30 by the end of the year. So I still think there's juice for SoFi. Unless you see a better opportunity because they're so deep in the money on those bot calls, then yeah, I would just leave those till December. I mean, dude, what if SoFi breaks above 35 by December? What if it really has one of those quarters? Like Morgan Stanley saying that it's worth 18. I don't think the market necessarily cares that much about that. It's annoying, but on a day like today, but I don't think that's the end all be all. So don't think you have to be too quick to get rid of those. Robinhood right there, 130, 113. Let's see even if it loses 131, if we hold 130 for the day, but you would have to go down a whole nother $1 just to break below that. That would be quite exciting. Steven says, Amit, it's my birthday and all I wanted was a green day and to kick back and watch the stream. Thank you for always delivering entertainment. Steven, happy birthday to you. Thank you for being here. And yeah, I'm happy you got a nice little green day. It's not too bad, right? It's always nice when you get a green day on your birthday because honestly, every day for investors that we get a really good green day feels like your birthday, right? It's like you just walk around your day-to-day life feeling a little bit better about everything because your portfolio's up. But on your birthday should be even cooler. So happy birthday to you, Steven. Thank you for being here. And happy we're getting a bit of a green day for your birthday. S&P's up 0.5%. PayPal's actually making a move. PayPal 69.81. That's up 3.5%. That's actually a little green. And you got Hoodie still holding on to 134. Sam Drup says, I bought 979 shares of Grab at 595. All right, I'm going to join you. Let's buy the dip on this. I was waiting for 590s. I don't know if we're going to get actually the low 590s. Let's do 1,000 shares at 597. Let's see where it fills at. 597. All right. I'm with you. Bought the dip. We're in. Let's see. Now, if we actually go down to the 580s, I'll buy more. But it'll be quite interesting if this one recovers back above 6. It means that 595 to $6, that's not really a spot where people want to start selling out of the position and think the trend is broken. And if they did, I think we easily see 580s. But it's holding up. A reversal to 6 would actually be very exciting for Grab. We got to 593. Okay, so we got there for a second. So it's up to this price action to see where we go. Nvidia still just below 184. I'm trying to get there. Bitcoin 114. Why would you put more money into Grab? Again, my Grab thesis outside of like the actual bull case, which I'm not going to get into, is that I think on a risk reward basis, the stock is cheap in a raging bull market. That's personally what I think. With 40% in cash, with re-accelerating revenues, and with the ability to deploy that cash in a region that is growing GDP at 7%, I really do think the stock is actually cheap, like legitimately undervalued in a massive bull market. And it's hard to say, I mean, like what stock is like super, super cheap in your perspective? Tesla's not super cheap. Hood's not super cheap. Palantir's not super cheap. SoFi after this move is not super cheap. AMD's not super cheap. Like there's not a lot of names that I think are unbelievably cheap and that are massive deals in the market. AppLovin's not super cheap. Now, PayPal's super cheap, but then again, PayPal's not growing. Grab back above 6. All right, there you go. Little reversal, 601 on Grab. But I think Grab is genuinely cheap. And if I'm going to park money somewhere, I do want it to be somewhere cheap. Oscar is cheap. That's fair. But Oscar's also made a pretty big move. Oscar, they're 1883. But I would agree. I've said this many times. Oscar's financials look like it's one of the cheapest names in the market. Iran is, okay, so I don't know if Iran is cheap, but just off the pure momentum of Iran, up 500% in the past 3 months. I guess there's like various definitions of cheap, but I would say that momentum makes it hard to say it's a cheap stock. Like when you have that much growth in the pure stock price, like the upside on it also is potentially not as strong, at least in the short term, right? Like, because you're just asking for a lot. Well, I rent to 60 by end of year. I mean, maybe, but it's asking for a lot after all this momentum. Unless their earnings really do justify it, and I don't know if that's the case. But for those that really do believe in it, theoretically could be cheap. Like Nebius, I mean, like from the earnings analysis I've seen by a lot of people, Nebius at 111 is still pretty cheap. Fair value is closer to 150, 160, but it's up 50% in the past month. So how much more do you really expect this one to run in the next month? Unless they get a massive earnings. I mean, earnings really changes the question for a lot of these companies to the downside or the upside. But in terms of purely being cheap, I think it's hard to find a lot of names that are out there. Wow, is Hood going for 132, bro? Are we actually going for 132? Amazon, I wouldn't say is the cheapest stock. It's actually more expensive than Google on a forward PE basis. The problem is Amazon hasn't moved. So again, going back to the definition of cheap, like a stock that hasn't moved, that's a phenomenal quality company like an Amazon. Is that cheap because it's barely up 1% year to date? Some people would say no. You look at other definitions of cheap and be like, compared to the Max 7 and momentum, like, yeah, it's probably cheap compared to its competitors, given those competitors have made a move and, maybe Google doesn't get to 300 by the end of the year, but maybe Amazon gets to 250 just based on its pure momentum as a stock versus a company. So that could be one argument for Amazon. Like Apple to me is not cheap at all. Like Apple's like, look at those earnings. It's not cheap, but it's had a lot more growth in terms of its stock price. PayPal right there is up 4% on the day. PayPal getting some love. Hoodie got to 130, 170. Let me check resistance at 132 on Hood. It was 9,000 for 131. 132 is 11,000. Again, not a lot. But maybe we get up there. Wolf, TeraWolf, that's up 4.5%. And then Iran still moving. Palantir 179.95. Wolfspeed is bankrupt. I don't even know why this thing is still trading. Why is this up 1,500%? What is going on today with Wolfspeed? Did they do a reverse split or something? I have no idea what's going on with this. This one is supposed to be bankrupt. Is this like the buyout price they had when they... I have no idea. Why is this thing up 1,000%? It's got to be some technicality that's working on. ETH almost 4,200. USAR, US Rare Earth Minerals, that's up today. MP, that's up about, or that's actually down. So USAR going the opposite of MP. And then ETH, almost 4,200. Almost 42. All right, not bad. I mean, we'll keep an eye on Hoodie and see if we can get to 132, but it is pretty exciting to see a bit more of this momentum. By the way, we were talking about data centers this morning. Here's a quick clip on another company in the United Kingdom that has raised money in the data center space. I mean, you're just seeing more and more of these neo clouds like CoreWeave and Nebius pop up. Here's a quick clip of more funding getting into that place.
Focus at the moment on the neo cloud, and Nscale kind of fits into that. What are the details from this story?
We have a lot more than what you said. This is 1.1 billion. They've described it as one of the large. Actually, they said it's the largest Series B round in Europe. You know, it's really fascinating to see the scale, though. We have some in our story in the Bloomberg today about this might be just the amount of money they need to purchase just one of their data centers they have had planned to build in the UK. And I think, you know, they are claiming to go out and deploy 300,000 NVIDIA GPUs. So they're going to need a lot more money. We're not sure if this is just equity or equity and debt, but they're likely to be raising probably both of more and very soon.
And your investigations before showing that Nscale, very briefly, Mark, has never built a data center before.
Yeah, I mean, what do you need experience? To be fair, that they spun out of a crypto mining operation, kind of similar to what CoreWeave did. They have hired senior executives that have a lot of experience, but the company itself hasn't.
So Nscale, again, more and more of these companies. I didn't even know what Nscale was, but it's another neo cloud. And again, a company like that continues to find a way to raise more money. Like $1 billion for a random new neo cloud in the UK. And I think this was Steve's point when everyone's saying this is a bubble. It's like these billions of dollars aren't just showing up with zero intention. I mean, these billions of dollars are showing up to be deployed because the constraint capacity for compute is a real thing. It's a real bottleneck. And as a result, you're getting more of these companies that are able to raise this capital. His hair got N-scaled. Goodness gracious. His hair was going up and to the right. SoFi still down about 2%. Grab back above 6. So it hit 593 to 603. So it's looking like 590 maybe is turning into a really good base for Grab, even if it gets back there. And then Hoodie still trying to touch 132. Let's listen to Liz Young, or Liz Thomas, I should say, as she got married a year ago, and kind of get her thoughts on what's going on with the broader market and what she's thinking about as the Fed continues to get into their cutting cycle.
Yes, the market has been going up for a long time, but that doesn't mean that it has to come back down and suddenly be over. I still think there's time in this bull market to go, but I do think that we'll have some of those pauses and some of those breakdowns, let's call it in the 10 to 15% range throughout the bull market that continues.
Okay, people look at this and say, okay, it's starting to feel like the 1990s. You have financing that's coming through. Obviously, these companies are different. They actually have profits and revenue. But how do you judge that comparison?
Well, I mean, even if you map it against the 1990s, we're probably not at the end. We're still probably somewhere in the middle of that range. And if you look at just the extended period of time that the 90s lasted on this enthusiasm, obviously about the internet, not AI, but the enthusiasm lasted for the better part of 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years before it turned over. And then overlay actions of the Federal Reserve on top of that, right. Things still went just fine through what we would consider an adjustment cutting cycle. So the Fed cutting because they can, not because they have to. And actually the market continued to rally even as the Fed started to hike rates again later in the 90s. So we've still got time here.
And your point is you got to be in it at this point.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to go back to Chuck Prince, but you got to dance while the music's playing. You think the music's going to be playing for quite a while.
I think the music can continue to play for quite a while. It's difficult to find something on the radar that can derail this in the near term, right? Valuations alone probably not going to derail it entirely. There would have to be an event, but that's always a risk, and you can't invest looking for the next event. So yes, I do still think there's time, and I think that investors have to be what I'm calling prudently present, right? You don't want to pull all your money off the table, but this isn't necessarily a time when everything's at all-time highs to be throwing a ton of new money in front of it. I think you can still wait for some of those periods, like I talked about before, the breakdowns in beta that are likely to occur.
What do you think does eventually puncture this, aside from the passage of time?
Well, I mean, we all know the quote, right? Bull markets don't die of old age, they're killed by the Fed. So if we start to see the economy reheat again, right now we're still in cooling mode. If we see it start to reheat again and the Fed is successful at this adjustment cycle where we get it to some sort of neutral rate, and then we start to hear about inflation heating back up, maybe even wage pressures heating back up, and the conversation shifts from cuts back to when do we start hiking, that's when you have to get concerned. And this period, obviously there are a lot of different schools of thought. Should we take the rate down quickly and get to neutral, or should we do it more patiently in measured fashion? This period is going to be really critical to make sure we don't overheat it and drive a bubble, so to speak, into that popping zone. Right now, I think we're okay. And as long as things stay patient and measured through at least the first half of 26, I still think that we can be successful at it.
Some of the
Liz is bullish, bro. She was not that bullish in 23 and 24. So you got some of the bears that are transitioning into bulls. And again, I don't think that's necessarily toppy. I think they're just coming to the conclusion that AI is real. It's increasing earnings. And although there are risks from a macro perspective with the labor market, which are real risks, it's hard to deny the overall momentum that you're seeing on company earnings. I mean, really, at its core, the one thing I don't get about the bears when they bring up their massive bear case, by the way, NVIDIA 50 cents from 184. If we could get to 184, that would be fantastic today. The one thing I don't get about the bears is that it's like when they see the corporate earnings from these companies, it's like they don't think the numbers are real, and they point to something else to be bearish about. It's like, dude, 85% of S&P 500 companies beat by an average of 8% in Q1 and Q2. If that continues in Q3, there are plenty of ways to get bearish about the market. I'm not saying there's not bearish arguments, but if companies' earnings are going up, the street's going to increase the multiple they pay for. It's just that simple. And obviously, we have to care about the macro to make sure that those earnings are sustainable. But the point is, you can't deny that earnings growth. And in October, if we continue to get good earnings growth, I think this is kind of the thesis for S&P 7000 that a lot of people have been talking about. By the way, PayPal making a move. When's the last time PayPal had a 5% day? It's been a minute. AMD 164. Grab recovering back above 6, 2.83% on AMD. NVIDIA still has about 240,000 shares at 184 to clear. It cleared it for a second. Now it's about 226,000. So still you have a decent number of shares waiting there. Palantir trying to crack 180, and then Hoodie's still holding on to 131. Galaxy's up 10%. Iren's up 5%. ETH 4,200. Bitcoin crossing 114. It's not a bad Monday. It's not a bad Monday at all. I showed this chart last night on the stream. I want to share it here again because I thought this was a really important chart. The share of equities as a percentage of U.S. households in terms of overall asset classes is 32%. This is the most across the entire planet. As you can see right there, cash is 12%, property is 30%, insurance and pension is 21%. 32% are equity and mutual funds. Across the world, Korea, the United Kingdom, China, Australia, and Japan, and Taiwan, real estate is actually the highest. Korea and Australia, you're at 65 and 57%. China and UK, you're at about 55%. Equities are the lowest in the other countries. Taiwan's the closest with 20%. Japan's at 12%. Australia's at 8%. Korea's at 7%. UK's at 7%. And China is at 11%, even though China's had a really good year in terms of their stock market. So the United States is one of the biggest stock markets that's out there. It's one of the only games in town for people to really allocate capital into meaningful companies. And if the earnings on those companies continue to do well and U.S. households continue to allocate, now a lot of that is because of their 401k, but the point is if they continue to be invested in the markets, and their 401ks now every couple of weeks are buying the slice of Robinhood due to it being the S&P 500. I mean, that is net bullish long term, regardless of the ups and downs of cycles that we may exist in. Especially if those companies put up really good earnings growth. It's just harder to deny their momentum at that point. Bitcoin right there, 114. That's getting some love. Is Take-Two moving because of competing with EA? Take-Two is actually up a little bit. This is the company that makes Grand Theft Auto. So EA is private today by the Saudis. Take-Two's up a little bit. Is Buffett buying PayPal? I don't think Buffett's buying it, but someone's getting excited about it today, up 6%. We know they had that Google partnership last week, which was important. It wasn't really a market-moving event. But you're starting to see a little bit of a reaction on it now. Yeah, and then AppLovin and Hoodie, again, I think S&P 500 funds are accumulating. That's why they're getting some love. K. Roger, thanks for the $50 super chat. Amid, take a look at Nebius with Arnie. Really impressed with their passion management and long-term vision. It brings back memories of Karp and Sham in the early days. It's also already in your stock draft. Yeah, I mean, look, Nebius, I've looked at not a ton, but enough to say I think they definitely deserve the momentum they've gotten. The Microsoft deal obviously was massive. The only fear I have for Nebius, and it's not really a major fear, but it's one of the reasons where I'm not that excited to invest in them, is like the bull case is they get more of those Microsoft $20 billion deals, right? And the leadership's pretty aggressive in communicating to the public that they're going to get more of those. What if they don't, right? Like what if for some reason they don't get those deals? That's I think the biggest red flag with all the different data center plays, Iran, Cypher, Wolf. What if they just don't get deals and other companies get those deals instead? Now, Nebius is such a quality company. They're very diversified. I think they will continue to get deals. So I don't think that's a massive bear case, but it's definitely something to think about. It's like, if those deals if they give it to CoreWeave instead or some, someone else, or an Iran, for example, it's just one of those things that keeps me a little bit more hesitant on that. Now, granted, Nebius has done such a good job, especially in Europe, that I don't think they're going to be at the mercy of like begging for certain deals. I think there's a reason they got that $20 billion from Microsoft. But you got to really understand those companies to be able to make sure you understand the trajectory of their deal flow. And I definitely don't understand them at that level yet. But I agree with you. Management's awesome. Roman is awesome. I mean, he's great on Twitter communicating. It's just a question of if they can keep those deal flows. Hoodie, 5 cents away. Are we about to break 132? Are we about to break? It's 11,000 shares. It would not be crazy for it to break above. Oh my, there you go. 132. 132 on Hoodie. 132.03. 132.03. My goodness. Let's see if it can actually hold above 132. Slice through it like butter. Didn't have that many shares that were waiting for it. 132.03. Dude, I don't know what's happening today. 132.18. Now it's breaking through. I don't know what's happening today, but something is happening. Something is obviously happening, dude. My goodness, this is aggressive. I did not expect to see this today, but it is aggressive. 132. I mean, is she actually going to try to go for 135 this week? Who's buying, right? Like, I don't think retail's causing this. What's the volume today? Volume on Hood today is 100. No, not 100. 18. Dude, it's not even a lot of volume. It's 20 million shares. It's not a ton of volume. There's really not a crazy amount of volume. So if this is S&P 500 restructuring, then I think that would be the core justification for how this is playing out. Benny said I bought today. Last time I bought was 124. So I haven't bought since then, but man, that is pretty incredible. That is pretty freaking incredible. Passive inflows, yeah, I guess that's it. This is definitely not because of sports contracts. So no way we're going to get 10% move because of sports contracts. You might have some people that are buying because they're bullish on that, but that's on a company as big as Robinhood, market cap now 120 billion, 117 billion. It's not making that move because of a sports contract headline. It's got to be something deeper. It seems like S&P 132 right there on Hoodie. Nvidia still trying to crack 184, 183.60. Nebius right there, 109, 110. That's at 112 on the day, 115 all-time highs. I mean, look, Nebius, I think end of year it cracks 115 very easily. I mean, it's basically got to 115 last week, 110 right here. So if they announce anything similar to the Microsoft deal again, this thing's probably going way higher, especially because, you know, Nebius also has a lot more data centers they've already built out compared to its competitors. But I think that's now the next big catalyst that the street's going to be watching for. Hoodie right there, 132 pound here, 179.40. Are you considering the vertical spreads on BM&R like Chris? Not for the expiration he has. He has 50.75 by end of year. I think that's a little aggressive. I'm looking more towards a year out if I was going to do spreads. But granted, I don't know if it's that aggressive. I mean, if ETH makes its move, BM&R is probably moving with it. So it's one thing that we got to see. Nebius end of year 150. Well, you know, that would be like what, a $40 billion market cap. I mean, they're now doing almost, they were doing 620 million a year. Now they're going to be doing about 3.2 billion per year. That's not crazy. To get to around 35, 40 billion market cap, doing about 3 billion, that's 10 times sales. That is not that aggressive, dude, especially at the rate at which they're growing. And then if they get another deal, you know, that's what gets them very excited. So the other thing about Nebius that I think is important is there's a massive retail community that cares about it. And so that's another reason to like potentially pay attention to the name more. It's just, you got a lot of smart people in retail that understand the name very well. And that could lead to like holding on to something where, you know, there's a decent amount of people that have done the due diligence to see their deal flow is very strong. Tesla right there, 444, just below 445. Nvidia still trying for 184, and then Hoodie just below 132, now back above 132. It's not giving it up that easy. On Friday, we hit 130, then we fell all the way to 122. This one's holding on to the 130s, which is exciting. Did you see that Nebius has other business as well? Tokla, ClickHouse. Yeah, I've seen those. I don't think those are the big money makers though for Nebius, right? Like the diversified part of the business is bullish. I don't think that's like the reason you'd buy a Nebius. You're buying Nebius for data centers, like at its core. And that business has to keep scaling the way it's scaling. And as long as it does, I think this one goes higher. But the other parts of his business are a nice cushion. It's just, I'm not sure they're getting to the point where, you know, they would get anywhere near the majority of revenues they're getting from data centers. Especially as a percentage of revenue, right? Like, I think that's one of the core things to look at. Street-wide targets are 6,000 to 7,000, so 75 isn't crazy. I mean, dude, I think when we get S&P 7,000, if we actually get it by the end of the year, people would be so freaking excited. And it either culminates into 2026 momentum, or people, oh my goodness, are we about to go to 133? Bitmine's at 54, Hoodie's at 132.65. Are we actually about to make a move, dude? Let me check resistance at 133. Let's see. But yeah, if it does hit 130, if it does hit, let me see, 133. Goodness, bro. It's the massive. I was saying if we do hit 75 or 7,000 on the S&P 500, it could set up a lot of momentum going into 2026, especially if people continue to see Q3 earnings growth. 133, 10,000 shares. 10,000 shares. 10,000 shares, which is not a lot. It's not a lot. AppLovin. Bro, AppLovin broke 745 to... Okay, guys, this is definitely S&P inclusion. AppLovin and Hood both are getting into the S&P. 1,000% this is S&P inclusion that's happening. Has to be. There's no freaking way AppLovin and Hood both go up 9% on a day. They're two big companies. There's no massive headline. There's no doubt in my mind these are S&P 500 funds that are accumulating today. I didn't know that today would be the major day they accumulate, but I guess this is the day. And I wouldn't say that if it wasn't AppLovin. Like if it was just Hood, it would be something different. But if AppLovin is also going up 8%, that's likely both of them. I don't think it's a crypto trade. Bitcoin and Ethereum are up, but they're not up massively. And the crypto trade, you could say, is already priced into Hood. So I doubt it's crypto that's causing this momentum. It seems a lot more like, just given AppLovin's up, it seems a lot more like S&P 500 today. So there you go. Blew through my price target. My price target end of year was 120. And I know that was a little conservative, but at the time Hood was at like 95. And I'm like, look, I think 120 by end of year is possible. 130, I don't know. If they deliver a monster Q4 or Q3, all bets are off the table. I mean, this, especially if Ethereum and Bitcoin run, like again, Hood is a toll booth on Ethereum and Bitcoin that could massively juice their revenues on that as well. I'm not sure why PayPal's green today. Microsoft's up a little bit, 514. I don't have a headline on PayPal. It could just be that people are buying in because it's undervalued, like we all know. Yeah, even Roy just tweeted. He said, I have no idea. I don't know. Dude, if Nancy Pelosi comes out and says she bought Robinhood, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that would be crazy. See, yeah, Julia, I don't know. Didn't they already have to accumulate? I thought they did. Let's ask Gemini. When do funds have to accumulate a new name that gets into the S&P 500? I thought it was done last week, but apparently not. No, Gemini's not giving us any. They're just telling us when the S&P 500 rebalances. Doesn't tell us exactly. When a stock is added, these funds must buy shares of the new company to match its weighting in the index. Okay, let me ask when. When does the company have to buy the stock? Let's see if we get anything here. All right. It obviously didn't have to be just on September 22nd. The announcement of a stock's inclusion in the S&P 500 typically occurs about 5 trading days before the effective date. The changes go into effect prior. Index tracking funds, including mutual funds and ETFs, then rebalance their portfolios to include the newly added stock. This creates significant buying pressure. Yeah, it's not telling us exactly, but it's definitely happening today, dude. AppLovin and Hood both moving like this likely is happening at the same time today. Yeah, maybe it's before month end. Maybe that's the simple answer. And we got 2 days left until the end of the month. Today and tomorrow. So maybe it's literally just before the month end, and that goes in line with the rebalancing that we should be seeing over the next couple of days as well. All right, there you go. Getting some nice green. Let's finish up with Liz Thomas right here, and then we'll see what other headlines we've got.
The sectors you like include financials and healthcare. And financials, obviously, a lighter regulatory touch seems to be certainly helping all of those stocks. Healthcare, there is some political risk to play into this, depending on where you go. But we're facing a deadline right now for the drug companies to come up with their own list of how they're going to cut drug prices before the government imposes it on them. How do you handle that political risk factor?
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly not the first person to say like financials, so we don't necessarily need to talk about that. But the healthcare piece, I mean, it comes up on the radar just in the last few months because it was so low. It was, how can the valuation go any lower? It was in the first percentile versus the S&P. Mm-hmm. So it's attractive from that perspective because you're trying to put money to work. Where can you do that and get what you're paying for? The other piece of it is healthcare at the end of last year started to go down and had a really rough start to 2025. I think a lot of the bad political news was priced in at that point. Can it still go lower? Yes. But I think much of it had already been priced in, and there's likely to be some volatility. But I think healthcare as a sector has bottomed, so to speak. It went through that process, and as we know, bottoming is a process. It went through that process, and now I think it's okay to start putting money to work there, especially if you're looking for other opportunities for growth outside of tech, because biotech, pharma can be those places.
What about China? Why China at this point? We did hear the beige report for, Leland Miller was on talking about how their economy is starting to show signs of improvement, but he thought some of it was maybe manufactured by the government pulling some things forward.
Sure, that is going to happen. And obviously there's always going to be an element of how reliable is the data that we're getting out of China. But I still think they're going to fight in this AI race. And we're going to continue to get announcements from China tech companies about trying to pull ahead. And there's going to be increased competition in that space. And along that way, they may not win, but along that way, there's upside in that market on the optimism that it could happen. And then if you just look at the economy of China in general, still struggling, still in a deflationary zone, I think the government will continue to stimulate until they start to see more signs of life.
That's likely why the perception on Chinese stocks has been pretty damn incredible. And obviously BABA, JD, and Baidu have reflected that. BABA right there up about 3.9%. I forgot about the China stimulus. I mean, we haven't talked about it in a while, but they are stimulating pretty heavily. Whether it's reducing the reserve ratio requirements for banks, or whether it's just straight up, pumping more liquidity into the system via quantitative easing. Their central bank has been very focused on fixing some of the problems over the past 5 years that have been created by the real estate crisis, Evergrande, all that stuff. And that obviously could be very bullish for Chinese stocks. Robinhood right there, 130, 170, still holding 8% on the day. S&P's up 0.3. NVIDIA not being able to break through 184, still stuck right there. Grab back to 602. Google at 247. SoFi down 1.7, and then AMD up 2.7%. There you go. That's what you've got today on the broader markets. I played gold yesterday with a boomer and mentioned Hood. The first thing he said, that GameStop company. Yeah, Hood's reputation is still, unfortunately, to a lot of people, GameStop. But the company is, when people bring up GameStop now, I'm like, dude, they have transformed so much from those times. Like, if you're not able to just move on and see a company's growth and evolution, then I don't know what to tell you. But I do think the name has changed a lot since then. Is it possible that institutions and hedge funds wanted to catch one more wave before Q3 ends and 1 October starts to increase their gains and stats for their Q3 performance? It is possible. The mind of money managers and hedge funds is very interesting as we get into the end of the year, because obviously now they need to justify to their clients why they should continue to leave their assets with them going into 2026. And so that's also kind of the reason why we tend to have a Santa Claus rally. It's like everyone at the end of the year wants to have a good year. And so historically and psychologically, it makes sense that everyone's motivated to make sure that the end of the year does well, so that a lot of fund managers can continue to say, hey, look how good I did for you. Maybe the first 3 months sucked, but by the end of the year, I really caught up, and, stocks outperformed, all that stuff. And they continue to, pile up more assets. So there is a sort of incentive for everyone to want to have a good end of year. And, the last time it was a bad end of year was 2018, when the trade war was just so aggressive that it messed up Q4. But if that doesn't happen, yeah, you might have some fund managers that are piling in. They want to get in before good earnings and hopefully have a good Q4, and that helps them. So maybe that could be a little bit of an explanation of some of the momentum we're seeing today. And then tomorrow we just got one more day to play it out. Thoughts on the government shutdown? Again, I don't think much is going to happen there. I think, there's going to be a lot of posturing by the Democrats and Republicans to try to get some of their initiatives passed. We know that Trump has already said he's going to fire a bunch of people if the government actually shuts down. I think towards the end of the clock on Wednesday, we're likely going to get to a deal. This is what one of the senators, Dave McCormick, had to say about if we would actually see a government shutdown.
I think they are 12 months later taking a position that they're an irresponsible position, threatening to shut down the government, holding the government hostage based on a set of principles that are completely inconsistent with what they said a year ago, which is we have a clean continuing resolution. We need to keep the government running. I mean, I'm a business person. Only in government would you think of the idea of shutting down the government, the disruption for the taxpayers, the disruption for the military, the border patrol, the potential disruption for the economy. So this is terrible policy. It absolutely makes no sense to shut down the government. But the Democrats, in an effort, I guess, to show resistance to the fact that Republicans are moving forward on their agenda, are threatening to do that. And I think they're in a tough spot, because Chuck Schumer, this will be his shutdown, has essentially made the threat, and now he's going to have to get back off the ledge, right, or we're going to have a shutdown. And I'm unfortunately think it's more likely than not that we will.
we've seen this movie before, and oftentimes the clock ticks closer and closer to midnight, and invariably somebody blinks. In this case, it may very well be the Democrats. I don't know. But in terms of taking us behind the scenes, what is really the ask, do you think? And is there anything to offer as it relates to the ask from Republicans at this point?
Well, I mean, from my perspective, I don't think there's a lot to offer on the side of Republicans. Essentially, Republicans under the Biden administration supported continuing resolutions to keep the government running because we need to have good faith negotiations, which are underway through normal order and the appropriations process. What they've asked for, what the Democrats have asked for, is an increase of $1 trillion of additional spending. It's the ability to give health care to illegal immigrants. It's rolling back a lot of the things that were passed in the big, beautiful bill. So I don't think there's any pathway with those sorts of demands to get to a resolution. So I think they're going to have to back down, or we're going to have to shut down the government. And this is something that I've said consistently. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Senator. There are some Republicans who are in favor of strengthening some of the healthcare supports because their states actually will be impacted pretty hard by this. I don't know if this is the time for it with the government shutdown in a day and a half.
That's right.
But there has been some discussion that 7 weeks out, you could see some Republican senators who very much want to see some, if not all, of what the Democrats are talking about when it comes to healthcare costs.
Yeah, we should have a very fulsome, and we are having a very fulsome and rich debate about those things. So I'm not speaking about whether there'll be some Republicans who will support adjustments. What I am saying is that the way to do that is not to threaten to shut down the government and disrupt our entire country if you don't get what you want, and you're going to sort of step outside those good faith negotiations. So I suspect Republicans will be pretty united on the fact of moving forward on a clean continuing resolution.
They'll get a deal, bro. They'll get a deal. This is all nonsense, bro. The Republicans and Democrats, they know they work for the people. The people are not going to be happy if there's a massive government shutdown. I mean, it's stupid. So I think we will get some type of deal soon. And if we don't, it's going to last for a month. We're going to shut down the government for a month. Hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people are not going to get their salaries for a month. Like, no, dude. Trump's really going to fire thousands and thousands of people. Yeah, that's going to be politically easy for him to do. Like there will be a deal. And if there's not a deal, I think the most extent is going to be a week. And then we hopefully move on. So, I mean, like, look, and if we have a real shutdown, a lot of constituents are going to be calling up their representatives and just being like, dude, fix this shit. I don't care what deal you have to get to. Come to a negotiation and get it done. So I really do doubt it's a threat, but it's something to look out for. One other update we have is Israel and the United States. They are meeting today potentially for a peace deal with Gaza.
President Trump, as you say, is going to host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House in just a short time. We might be running a little bit behind on the estimated schedule there, as he's pushing this peace plan for Gaza, and European leaders are moving at the same time to recognize a Palestinian state. President Trump obviously has not recognized Palestine, but he does want to push Netanyahu for what he calls a deal on Middle East peace. And President Trump this year has sketched out a vision for a post-war Gaza that's dramatically at odds with the current reality of devastation and starvation in the streets there. He sees Gaza as prime real estate on the Mediterranean to be developed peacefully in a post-war world. Now, in an interview with NBC News on Sunday, the president said, "We're doing very well. It looks like there is a really good chance for peace in the Middle East. Everybody is on board, everybody." The United States has a 21-point plan to end the war that begins with an immediate ceasefire and Hamas release of all the hostages within 48 hours. And that would be in exchange for a phased withdrawal of Israeli troops. That's according to NBC. Now, this will be Netanyahu's fourth visit since Trump came to office in January. And he's going to be looking to keep his close ally close as he prepares and presses his war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. But with the war nearly 2 years old, he may be facing political pressure at home to find a settlement to the conflict. So we'll see if the deal makers can make a deal here today or whether this continues to stay in limbo, guys.
But I mean, isn't the...
All right, so we're going to see. I mean, that's definitely going to be something where the markets would be very curious to see if there's any level of a deal that is created from that. Obviously, you've got to get all sides to agree to it as well. So it's not just Israel and the United States, but Palestine is going to have a say in this. And the question is going to be, what this deal looks like towards the end of the year. And I think it's going to be a precursor to see, Trump's been saying he's ending all the wars and, getting everyone to have more peace. This is going to be a big one to see if he can actually figure it out. Obviously, Russia-Ukraine has not worked out in the way that he's wanted it to work out. And he's pretty pissed off that Putin has not been able to capitulate to kind of the way he wants it to play out. But this, China, India, Russia, Ukraine, I think these are the 4 major things to see by the end of the year if Trump has the ability to even kind of get close to any progress. SMCI right there, up about 2.5% on the day. NVIDIA, that's still up 2.5%. Hoodie holding 130. We'll see if we give up 130, hit 132.75. Got to see if that can hold momentum. And then NVIDIA, unfortunately, not breaking through 184, but at least at 182.50. All right. I think that's it. That is it for the day. We'll see how this ends up playing out. Last 2 days of September. Hopefully we can keep this going. I'll be back on the market close. We don't have any earnings today. We do have Nike tomorrow, so that'll be an important one. And we'll see what ends up happening with Nike. We did have Carnival Cruise today. It was a decent earnings. That stock is down, but not a bad quarter. Beat estimates on the top and the bottom line. And hopefully October continues to play out the way it needs to play out. Someone asked, when are you starting the daily recaps again? I likely will be starting it next Monday. So what's next Monday? October 6th? Yeah. Most likely the 6th or the 7th on Monday or Tuesday we'll be starting it. I do want to start it again in October. It'll be like a 15-minute summary every single day. So if you didn't watch the market open, market close, 15 minutes to summarize what's going on. I did it for like 2 months, but then my grandparents came over in July and August, and it just became really hard to keep up with it. So yeah, likely bringing that back in October. We'll try to keep it to 15 minutes. So if I keep it to freaking, 30 minutes, it's not even a recap at that point. So yeah, that should be back. And we'll be bringing the Substack due diligence, the Substack as well. I'll link that on the channel probably in a week. And I have a company that I want to start my first deep dive on. I want to release it when that deep dive is released as well. So probably that's like mid-October, October 15th, we'll put that out. And so we'll have daily recaps coming back next week, and then we'll have the deep dive in 2 weeks launching. And then every 2 weeks, we should have a new company that gets up there. This is one thing in the freaking government shutdown. BLS will suspend all operations. So this is something that actually will have an impact on all of us as investors. I mean, the BLS will not be collecting wage data, wage growth, spending growth, consumer expenditures, job growth, obviously. So if we do get a shutdown for more than a week, it could really make the numbers kind of wonky as we get into the end of the year for Q4. And that's something we likely would not want to see. But that's going to be something we have to look at if we do get this, this government shutdown. Word of the day is, I think I've seen this word before, ethereal.
Ethereal.
Extremely delicate or refined. An ethereal melody drifted through the empty cathedral. The film's lighting and slow pace created an ethereal atmosphere. Okay, ethereal. The word this reminds me of is ephemeral, which is like disappearing. This is not exactly the same, but those two words kind of line up. ETH is real. Dude, I should have made that joke. Oh my goodness, that would have been such a good one. I should have been like, yeah, ETH is real. Dude, that's a sign. That's got to be a sign, bro. Come on. Ethereum, we got to end green today. If that's the word of the day, Ethereum's still green. We got to close out green on the day with a word like this. Ethereal. ETH is real. There you go. There you go. All right, folks, that is it. We'll be back on the market close. We'll see what we've got going on. Yeah, government shutdown stuff. That is the main, I think, headline for the week. We'll know by Wednesday night. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Hopefully not. Hoodie, just an incredible, incredible performance today. I mean, it obviously is S&P 500. AppLovin would not be up 7% with Hood if that wasn't the case. And this is what you get for holding on to a company and buying it before the big guys are forced to buy it. When they're forced to buy it, it ends up helping all of us that bought it pretty early. So There you go. Grab breaking back above 6. Hoodie 130.75. Pound right there 178.05. And then the S&P 663.59 on the day. All right. That is it for me. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back in a few hours. And yeah, we'll keep going from there. Oh, Steve did start a YouTube channel. Let me link that real quick for everybody. He is officially getting into YouTube. And so he officially started one. Took him a lot of months, but he officially said, you know what? I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And I'm really happy that he started it because it's taken so long. Now, the problem is he doesn't have any videos, so I don't even know how I'm going to find his YouTube channel because YouTube's not really indexing it yet. But it's his name and then Ferilio. Did he hit 1,000 subs? I don't even know because I didn't check. YouTube should have an option where you can sort through subscriptions like earliest to latest. Yeah, dude, I don't even know how to link his channel, to be honest. I don't even freaking have his link. Let me see. Let me see if I can find this here. Will he stream World of Warcraft? He might. Oh, so someone has the @ right there. Let me see if I can. Steven Fiorillo 1. Am I spelling it right? F-I-O-R. F-I-O-R. F-I-O-R-I-L-L-O. Oh, I have 2 R's. Okay, boom. I got it. There you go. All right, there it is. Yeah, he has 940 subs, so you guys can subscribe to him right there if you want to subscribe. He's going to be putting out live streams, deep dives, all this fun stuff. It'll be a fun journey for Steve because obviously he's been on my channel, for years along with Tanner, and it's always nice when someone kind of builds their own thing. So I also think the first live stream is going to be hilarious because I don't think Steve really knows how to interact with a chat. And it's not, especially when you have a lot of people typing, it's not, there's a certain science to how you navigate a chat. And Steve's never had to really deal with it. He doesn't really look at the chat when we're doing our stream. So the fact that he'll be responsible for managing, I think it'll be fun. It'll be pretty cool to kind of see him figure it out. And he's going to have his own unique personality. He's going to have his own way of talking to the stream and engaging with an audience and all that stuff. So it should be fun. It should be super fun. He's going to get mad at us. Dude, yeah, I mean, someone says some stupid shit, he might end up crashing out, which is also going to be hilarious. It's going to be great to see. So it's just a journey for someone to navigate that. There you go. Wow, 1,000 subs. He's going to be happy when he sees that. So it's also, Steve's not really an emotional guy. It's not easy for him to show emotion. So if someone sends him $100 super chat saying, Steve, you're awesome. Thanks for all the analysis. Steve might be like, thanks. Appreciate it. It's just, he's a different type of character. So I think it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see his whole journey. But the thing I told Steve is that, look, he's doing so much Seeking Alpha content. If he just turns his Seeking Alpha videos Seeking Alpha articles into a video every day, or he puts out 3 articles a week, make 3 videos a week. Very simple. So if you talk about Oracle in an article, and it's a 10-minute article, turn it into a 20-minute video, and boom. I think he could have multiple videos a week. That's really valuable content because it's just going to be all of his due diligence in audio and video format. Yeah, you will definitely get a lot of I don't care by Steve as well. But it'll be good. It'll be awesome. 1,000 subs without any content is not easy. It's not easy to get people to subscribe. So I do think he's pretty grateful for this. And, I'm grateful for you guys subscribing as well. He's a big part of the community. He's become a really good friend of mine, and I'm happy that he's doing his own thing. All right, there you go. We are done for the day. I will be back on the market close. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'll see you guys in a few hours. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.